to just feel confident about myself.
You could be a voice artist.
Yeah, look, I wish I could be an actor, like a voice actor.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Totally can.
My mum will kill me.
Your mum will kill you anyway.
That's
for lots
true.
Of things, so
That's
just,
true.
You know,
Yeah.
Bro, is this life coaching right here?
This is life coaching.
This is free.
38 an hour.
Hang on a second. Villanova Public School is my alma mater, so that's just like a 2-minute walk from the studio right here. And I played Willy Wonka in the lead role, Peter Pan.
In the same play.
But here's the thing. My debut in the school plays was in year 3. I was actually Nala. I played a female lion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There you go. So I've had drag experience. Just put it out there. Just put it on the resume.
Early days.
Well, look, man. Yeah.
Before it was the conversation was trendy and
yeah, exactly right, man.
You're already doing it earlier than all of us.
Look, I was above the.
You know, I was cast as a security guard in my school play when I was in year 6, and I realized this now. Actually, I realized it at the time. Not even joking. Year 6, there were 3 security guards, right? There was an Islander guy, a Lebanese guy, me, and there was another guy as well who was a Greek as well. We were all the security guards, and I'm like, I wonder how they cast us for the security guard, man. Like, I reckon she was driving around the night before, and she was just looking at the security guards on the street and being like, yeah, we could get him to do it. Yeah, he'd be a good security guard.
There's a lot of microaggressions when you think back to a Western Sydney upbringing, or in the West. You went to school in the West, right?
Yeah, I went to school in Dawah initially.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Dawah Public School, man. And I went to school actually with Anthony Albanese's son.
Hey.
Yeah, he was a whiny little kid, man.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like him very much.
But guys are just Albo, we love you, man. Keep up the good work.
A real politician's kid, you know. Like what you would imagine a politician's kid in Australia to be is exactly how he was. And his mum was a politician as well, Carmel Tebbit. She was education, yeah.
Good on.
Yeah, state government. She was deputy leader, I think, of the Labor Party.
Not bad.
And then she retired when Albo went
You didn't like the shit, but you voted for Labor Party.
Bro, any day.
Boys,
me and I'm the second biggest Muslim supporter of the Labor Party in Australia after Abdullah Kunde. So,
and I'm probably top 5 now, Andre.
Nah, man, it's really interesting. We had the council elections lately, right? And I was thinking about how the Bengalis have like really gone hard for the Liberal Party in our area. Have you noticed that?
It's Labor and Liberal. It's actually a little bit embarrassing.
Really, Labor as well. I haven't seen it.
And I mean,
maybe down in the Minto area.
No, not in Minto, but basically, can I say this? But basically, it just seems wherever they'll get a position, they'll just go with
What's so controversial about that?
No, as in it's not sincere. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's full Sufi interpretation of what's going on.
If you go like Lakemba, right? I can't remember if it's federal government or must be state government. Both the Labor and Liberal sides have Bengali candidates.
Really?
Yeah. And some of the surrounding areas as well.
Yeah.
And it's literally just putting like matching the demographic to the candidate. That's it.
Basically, what Sadi's saying is that the Liberals, the members of the community who joined the Liberal Party haven't read Adam Smith, and those who joined Labor aren't Marxists.
The centre left party in Bangladesh is Awami League, yeah.
Sorry, what?
Awami League is the centre left, right, in Bangladesh,
Yeah.
and then BNP
left.
is centre right.
Yeah.
To right, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there's any kind of analogy between BNP supporters and then. No, that wouldn't work, would it? Like BNP supporters and centre right, like in the Liberal Party here.
No.
It would probably not be that way at all. It would probably be the opposite.
Yeah, it's very difficult to assess because they only had so little time in actual politics. Yeah. Like BNP's back's broken for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And democracy only got there in 1990, literally. So you've got 20 years, and then they were in power twice, I think, 2.5 terms, something like that, over 20 years. This is a completely different topic.
Yeah.
But like it's difficult to tell. Like the more significantly is their founder Ziaur Rahman, and when he was in power, I mean, as a military leader, but head of state practically, he cleaned up the constitution a little bit, and that's all. What's the word? That's controversy. He put the basmala in the constitution, and he said, Islam is the state religion, whereas Bangladesh was founded on a very secular basis. Yeah. It was everything Pakistan everything is not. It's the opposite of Pakistan, a secular liberal democracy.
Have you ever heard of? I was reading the other day about Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani.
Oh yeah, Bashani.
Yeah, he was really interesting, man. I was doing some reading on him. They used to call him the Red Maulana because of his communist affiliations, apparently.
Yeah.
And he actually wrote like a lot on Islam and socialism.
I don't know a whole lot about him, but like that whole period, I think, across the Muslim world.
Sheikh Mujib was a student of Maulana Bashani, yeah. But that was really interesting because, when you study Islam and socialism, you try to find parts.
I may need to go to Bangladesh sooner or later, so I got to stop talking about this.
That's it.
I want to see my family.
I do
I
want
want to
to
enter the country in peace.
And I want to be able to come back. That's one bit. Right.
So I'll do a mad segue. So like, what party would Jordan Peterson be affiliated in Bangladesh? Would it be Awami League or BNP? All right. So,
I think
you're actually seriously considering the question.
I think we should analyze that first. No, I'm just.
Let's officially start the podcast.
Yeah, let's sack that introduction.
No, people love that, bro. People love introductions like that, and then you like randomly like I just like interrupt everything and then randomly get into.
No, I was just thinking about how I've managed to make it through like the podcast episodes without swearing. I don't think I've sworn once on the actual episode. And it's so I reckon I deserve a medal for that.
There's baraka in the podcast. Essentially, was what I'm getting at.
Has anyone sworn on the podcast before?
No, but I swear all the time.
Cuss words, I think here and there, but like one certain guest, I won't name him, but like nothing like serious.
yeah. didn't his episode wasn't it removed later?
No,
or is that different?
No, I'm talking about someone else. But now you just brought up bad memories, bro.
I mean, I can feel
You just brought up traumatic memories, bro.
I can feel retention here.
Yeah.
Stuck in the middle. Raph, what do you do?
Let's actually use this now to bring up all of our the misdemeanors of Boys in the Cave in the past. Let's make this the actual direction of the episode. I remember reading, actually, it's really interesting. I go through some of the comments on the episodes to see what people's criticisms are, especially of me. And there are quite substantial ones at that too. So for all those people who criticize me, I just want to say genuinely, like, come down to Bankstown and say it to my face.
I'll meet you at Bankstown, Mac.
Yeah.
In the parking lot.
12 Central Car Park.
midnight where the,
Come Central
where
Car
the
Park,
cops
bro.
are at. I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Come Macca's car park, Rickard Road, and we'll debate.
Yeah.
Big body politics.
We'll debate
We will discuss.
theology and philosophy.
We'll debate if Jordan Peterson's aligned with the BNP.
I will move between nihilism and absurdism to rattle your head.
That's it. Nah, man. Did you
Do you like the episode on Jordan Peterson?
Mohammed Hijab? It was very good.
Can I get some admissions? To put everyone on the spot though, only because I'm, when you've done your homework.
Do it, man.
Okay, go for it.
I know Tanzim's definitely watched it.
I watched it twice.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
I watched it 1.5 times.
Yeah, that's legit.
I watched it once in normal speed, and the second time was 1.75 speed.
Same.
Here's the thing. I didn't change the speed. I watched it the first time, and then I did what Rafa did. I just skipped like 50 minutes in the second time.
Yeah.
Because the first 50
First
were a
45
bit-
minutes were
Was
irritating.
it Theology 101? Like a why Islam pamphlet just handed
Like I
to
said,
Jordan
yeah,
Peterson?
it was just like a Dawah pamphlet, man.
What was that, 12?
The first 45
No,
minutes.
the first 45 minutes of the podcast was like, what's submission? What's Islam, brother?
I listened to the whole thing, and I should put this on the record, make it nice and clear. I don't
You want to go back to Bangladesh, come back to Australia?
There's that, but I've got I've got Raf on my side.
He forgot my name, by the way. Yeah,
Guys,
yeah, he just
for all the
forgot.
viewers who are listening,
He was just
Sadi
blanking.
just forgot Rafael's name, and he was doing sign language. Like, what's your name, Raf? Like,
Nah, it's alright, man.
He was doing the Italian gesture with his hand
Yeah.
to make it come.
Obviously, I know his name. If I'm doing that, then
Yeah, exactly. Nah, Saif's a good guy. We go way back, man. Like,
Saif.
that is my name.
I'll come up with a different name for him every time. Be like Sajid, Syed. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Okay, Michelangelo.
There's a guy who does that every time he sees me. He has a different Italian name. Says like Leonardo, and he's so good, man. He's like a guy from the area. I'm like, where'd you come up with? Where'd you learn all these Italian names? He's up to like, several dozen now, 56, 57. And he's getting more and more niche. He was like the other day, he was like Pantaleone or something, which is like some old name from back in the day. And he's
Rafael, two things. He's definitely played Assassin's Creed 2 and up until Revelations. There's your answer.
So what did you want to lay on the table?
What are you saying?
Oh, no. It sounds like we've done the homework. And some of us even watched it in our dreams and stuff. So, this is really... we've got the credentials to discuss this.
But if you didn't watch it or listen to it, are you actually on the side of Islam though? Like this is the event of our age. Yeah.
Wait, what was that quote?
What did you say?
that was it.
It's like right. Salahuddin's legacy.
Yeah,
this is the best thing.
The re-entrance of Salahuddin and the Muslim army into Jerusalem, and then it's
then you have this podcast
Hijab meets Peterson. Yeah.
630 is when the Hijrah happened, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. And then Fath Makkah 13 years later.
Conquest.
I think Hijrah was 20, wasn't it? 2021. 2021, yeah.
Okay. I'm angling
this
real
was
good.
10 years later, 631.
I shouldn't put dates.
We start with the Islamic calendar, brother.
570 is in the process I was born.
Yes.
So, see, I know. You just add 40 and then you add 10 and then, yeah. Anyway, and then for a long time, nothing happened. There was a conquest of Jerusalem. And then for a long time, nothing happened. Moon landings. Yeah. And then we have yesterday's...
Basically, the intellectual giants, that is the Muslims, have returned by virtue of the podcast.
Ibn Sina
and
Ghazali's works.
And guys, all it took was a white man from Canada. So
yeah,
critical race theorists, eat your heart out.
Oh, yeah, critical race theory when it came out, and then now this podcast.
Well, what's it called? Muhammad says towards the end, Islam will destroy nihilism and was it Islam or like
and postmodernism?
No, yeah,
right?
This can help you destroy.
Destroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I heard that word, like the key words, you hear the words and it just rings in your head, and then you stop paying attention. Like because there's a meme of Jordan Peterson saying, "I see the end of postmodernism as directly as I see you."
Yeah, it's a memory meme.
Is it?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, but it's an actual quote.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said that to someone in I
see the annihilation of postmodernism as clear
as I see you. So you sit next to me, so that's pretty clear, right? Goodness. Yeah.
But
I just want to say, today there was two other things. So talking about doing homework again, because I'm feeling so proud about this. Sabur Ahmed, is that how you say his name?
He did a 1 hour thing.
Yeah, he did a 1 hour thing.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, so I skipped through that. In that, he just talked about the rational arguments and how Jordan Peterson actually knew his stuff, so to speak, and he was countering the point, which was that if you go into propositional arguments, then you accept that even if you're on the other side of the debate, you have already lost. Right? So atheists do this as much as Muslims do this. So this is not putting it negatively or positively. That's not my intention. But the point is, like, if you accept the terms of debate, then, it's already loaded, so to speak. So, and actually, Muhammad did this a couple of times in the episode and actually bothered me. So, which was that he said to Jordan Peterson, this was towards the end, and sorry if I've hijacked this, but
go for it.
He said, you value truth, right? And Peterson said something like, "Well, yes, it's sometimes it's difficult to tell, or good and evil. I think difficult to tell which is which, but I would like to think that good has more value, or truth has more epistemic or ontological value, right?" And then Muhammad had like a gotcha moment, which was that, Islam is projected to become number one in population, and that's where they made that love joke, which is that we're going to have the largest number of population by the end of the century, and therefore you must like Islam, right? Yeah, and he did that a couple of times. If you listen to the whole episode, and I think that stuff really bothered me. It was like, this is not how you're going to win someone. Like just saying, if you accept X. And then and X leads to Y, then you must accept the outcome.
No, it's like a salesman technique, man. It's like, are you looking for this?
Yeah.
Are you looking to clean your home in less than 2 hours? Well, have I got the thing for you?
And then if I can't say no, because then the conclusion becomes I accept to live in my own filth. You see, That's the trouble. And it's not that I do. So even if I start saying yes to your questions, that's the trouble. And Peterson picked up on this right at the beginning. And Sabur Ahmed today actually said that, that was a fair point. That was, I thought, and that bothered me because, all good? Yeah. Sheikh Yasir Qadi at AMJA, how do you say that? American, I'm going to go all over the place. But it just reminded me of a recent talk I heard about from Sheikh Yasir Qadi, which was why atheism and basically apostasy is how it's a problem in the United States. And he's talking to the ulama of the United States at their annual convention thing, that it's usually not rational issues. It's usually not, and atheists are actually a very small percentage, like 10, 15%. Most people that leave Islam are become agnostic. And so,
ooh, that's interesting. We actually have personal, we know someone,
right.
It's our experiences as well, like agnostic.
Yeah, and that's the trouble. Like, so if you're trying to convince them, the rational argumentation, like cosmological argument, this and that, because the first third of the Rafael saying, see, I know your name, Rafael, right? Was saying.
No, everyone just calls me Raf. It's fine.
Sorry,
everyone calls me Raf. It's
okay, all right, cool. That the first third of it sounded like a Dawah pamphlet, like Gorap, straight out of
Gorap.
Yeah, straight out of Gorap, and
we love Gorap though, but
probably
not there's time and place for it,
Yeah, not trying to diminish it, because Peterson twice asked this question about what is the core teachings of Islam, and he mentioned the word worship. Right, twice, and I don't think Mohammed Hijab attended to that at all.
So this was like the conversation that was happening online. It's like you could have easily went into like an explanation, but then it became a bit more long-winded, and you didn't really address the point in of itself. Worship, our relationship, I don't know, with nature, or how the world is, sort of worshipping Allah in its own sort of way, and obviously Allah was granted, humans in the highest manner, and so we worship Allah, so we have to succumb to and follow the Sharia, etc., in order to submit to Him. But I don't think that, and even you could have went to desires and all that sort of stuff. Kind of had like a Sufi sort of way of approaching that kind of. Bro. I think that would have like really shone through.
That's the word I was trying to. I don't know why I was trying to avoid it, but it wasn't very Sufi.
No, that's
so the response was very Ghazalian, or very responding as if you're responding to, people that are philosophers. And I don't know who he's trying to appeal to. The critique. So overall, my trouble here. I mean, this is a different point, right? We're engaging with Jordan Peterson as if he's representing Christianity, and he even pretends to a couple of times in the episode, right? And throughout his works, he does as well. Like if his 12 rules, I kid you not, I've listened to him. Believe it or not, this is crazy. So if you don't love me anymore, I don't understand. I listened to the 12 rules on Audible, and I tell you, 50% of the book is Bible, right? He's quoting massive parts out of the Bible, talking about the archetypes in the Bible, the struggle between good and evil and so forth. And this guy's an atheist, right? And so the only reason
he's not even accepted within the Christian community. Right. Like in the sense of the orthodoxy that we perceive like someone to, I don't know, we have a traditional orthodox of Islam that we adhere to. Even that like Christian version of that, it's like Jordan Peterson isn't even accepted into the circles.
I think what I respect about him in the sense is, and I can't say that, I think there's one thing I do respect is that he understands that the West is Christianity, even in a post, in the secular post kind of Enlightenment trajectory. It's still deeply Christian, and everything everything revolves around that Christian art, like the influence of Christianity, and it continues to permeate today throughout the Western world, even in secular, staunchly secular, atheistic and non-theistic trends. Like the West is Christianity, and so I think that I respect that about him, even if he himself doesn't believe many of the kind of orthodox interpretations of the scripture. He understands the cultural Christianity that continues.
Yeah, but he adopts that for its utility, which is, I think, Mohammed Hijab picked up towards the end that you're kind of a postmodernist, and he made that allegation because it was like, you're saying you're holding all of these things at the same time, right? Both tradition and you don't give weight to any particular tradition as such, right? You look for things in all. But yeah, my point is that this is the part which is a little bit scary, which is, the credence, and like you will see the outpouring of support in the comments section in the YouTube channel where it was uploaded from Muslims and Muslim organizations. Like they've got thousands of likes, just the comments. Mohammed Hijab says towards the end that you'll be welcomed in any mosque in the UK. And I don't think he's wrong. I think he's right. But the thing is, it's because he's been made into some guy that represents tradition, Christianity, and a bulwark against, quote unquote, all the wokeism of the left, or, the quasi left. And the scary thing is I don't think he's, from a Islamic point of view, he's no different to any other Islamophobe. Like the fact that he accounted him for the warlord comment, that doesn't take away from the fact that what he's doing is actually just as kufr as, say, some other, not outright Islamophobe like Ayn Hirsi Ali that he's going to interview, but someone else you wouldn't have on the podcast, that Mohammed Hijab wouldn't entertain.
But I think he has an appeal amongst Muslims because they view him as a sincere person and someone that's willing to engage. So, for example, I was having this conversation with Raf, and say your name, Mahmoud. I don't know if you want to stay anonymous, but
no. I am very happy to just listen to the fantastic discussion unfolding before me.
So we're talking about in terms of mainstream thinkers or intellectuals, how I guess within mainstream culture, there's the four horsemen like Sam Harris, etc. Then you have Russell Brand, and then you have Jordan Peterson, and there's probably a few others like Daniel Dennett maybe, or Lawrence Krauss, whatever. And so amongst those circles, you already see the kind of ardent atheists that are always smashing and talking down on religion, etc. Right? And so out of them, they see and perceive Jordan Peterson to be a bit more open-minded, essentially. And so it's someone that he can potentially, because he already appeals or draws from the Christian tradition and has quote unquote family values, all that. And so once they see someone like that in the mainstream media, they're like, okay, we can actually have a conversation and see, considering the sort of Islamophobic sentiments within media or social media, it's like we can actually have a conversation with him, and he has a big fan base, and they can in order to learn about Islam for what it is, they can actually have a conversation with him. And to be fair, him bringing Mohammed Hijab onto his podcast is, I guess, a big moment of achieving that of sorts, right? So I think that's why there's appeal amongst Muslims. From the Muslim community.
Isn't that's really grabbing for crumbs? Look,
I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying
right.
I'm posing.
I'm not.
Mahmoud and Sai looked at me with disgust.
No. It's not.
No.
It's not at you.
I was about to leave, bro.
No, it's just
this is about to be boy in the cave.
No, but
no, it's just.
If you're gonna leave, you're gonna have to slam the table. Okay. Yeah. There's you can't just do a pansy one. No, I want to push back on the point that he's open-minded, or he's what's the word? Sincere.
Yeah.
Did you just a week or two ago, the video emerged? I don't know when it actually happened, but it wouldn't have been too long ago. Some cricketer was facing racism, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
You saw that, right? So anyone can Google that, right?
Yeah.
And his first response was, "Oh, what racism? What are you talking about?" Right?
Yeah.
And he hadn't even looked into it. And then when it was pointed out to him, there and then, that
he was shunned, this is going to be about institutionalized racism.
Yeah, and he had this allergy to that concept. If he's open-minded, why would you be troubled with the idea of institutional racism? If you saw, what's going on in America in the last couple of years, Jordan, what's his name? Trump and so forth. Even if you have you're suspicious of the idea, right? Because you're not too privileged to see it. If you're sincere, you wouldn't respond that way, Let alone on a very the personal racism that cricketer felt, Muslim cricketer felt, and the how dismissive he was, and on every talk show is like that. I find every time something that's too sharp, he will immediately respond with some kind of factoid or little bit like Ben Shapiro, and you can't have a conversation. And I think that this conversation went smooth because the slack we cut him. He is besides the warlord point, he said, and no one's picked this up in one of his talks a couple of years ago, that Muslims don't draw the Prophet. So this is during that time, when what was going on, that disgusting stuff. Muslims don't draw graven images, or what's that Christian phrase? Images of the sacred, because you can't depict the sacred, you can't depict the divine in temporal form, which is shocking, right? He basically said that he basically thought that we think of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the same way as Christians see Jesus. That's how ignorant it was. The comment was, right? And off he was discussing Islam and all sorts.
And then so I want to add to your point, right? There's Ayan Hissi Ali, like, why are you having these kind of conversations and giving people like that airtime, right? There's that kind of, like, he's only getting Islam from her, basically, like, this whole, like, forever, basically, until, like, basically Mohammed Hijab. I don't know anyone else that he's publicly had a conversation with in that sense, right? So your sort of point is, like, from that angle valid, because I was also thinking there's a lot of people making the point that he was crying at the end and stuff, mashallah, very sincere and stuff like that. But in saying that, then I thought, like, he knows that he has a very big Muslim fan base, and so this, like, podcast having that kind of this sort of approach of being, looking sincere and whatever, actually it actually benefits him more, right, in that sense, because he doesn't want to. Because I bet you that warlord comment probably, like, he probably got a lot of heat, and he saw it, like, online or everywhere, or the reactions and all. So I thought about that as well. I'm like, that's like a possibility, right? But in the same breath,
it didn't seem like he hadn't registered if he had, because when Muhammad brought it up, he was like, no, go on, explain to me why this was wrong. Because he thought,
why is it controversial?
Yeah, he thought he was warlord as representative, in fact, which is frightening. And I think that conversation, the one about Islam being peaceful, that Mohammed Hijab sort of argued for, I think was really terribly done.
Why?
We can go through it, but I think
because at least, like, this is my perspective, at least, like, Jordan Peterson admitted or kind of redacted his statement about that. Wouldn't you? I think that's a win.
Yeah,
A great victory for the Ummah.
Yeah, it is. It's a great victory, bro. Okay?
It was such an intellectually lazy comment.
How much? What is Jerusalem worth? Nothing.
Nothing. Everything.
I take back my warlord comment.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, I will say this though. Like, I know there'll be some people who wouldn't have taken offense of a warlord comment. Like, they'll just owned it. Like, people just own our violent history, etc., etc. But I think one was intellectually lazy, partly because the connotation is very negative, and he knew for a fact that his audience would take it a negative way, because he was using Jesus as the opposite of what the Prophet Muhammad was, peace be upon him. But I think also, in terms of the podcast, Muslims like Jordan Peterson for what he opposes, not what he stands for.
My enemy is my friend.
It's all it is, right? So, I mean,
this.
Okay, let's unpack that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yes, this. So people don't want. So people who want to be traditionalists. Muhammad went out of his way to say that he's traditionalist. It appeals to because Peterson loosely, approximately, also represents some kind of tradition, or the Christian.
Christian.
The hopeful Christian,
the vanguard.
Yeah. Oh gosh, have I lost my train of thought? The way Mohammed Hijab responded to the peace issue was very contrived to accommodate Peterson. So the most scariest thing, and I thought it was actually offensive, right? And I'm not, inshallah, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not, making this into a tabloid. But he said that the Prophet was like this, the Prophet was like that in war and so forth. The Muslims are like that. But he said Jesus in his second coming is also going to be violent, as if to say Jesus is your prophet and your problem to explain. And I don't think you can afford to talk like that as a Muslim.
It was a bit. Like, it's very awkward.
Yeah,
but I think on the flip side, he's painting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a manner where it's like we have nothing to do with him, but it's like no, but within your own kind of Christian tradition, you have these prophets in such a manner. I think that's the point in terms of
polemical kind of.
That's the point. But number one, this guy doesn't believe in Christianity. So who are you talking to? Really? And the fact that I don't think for a second you can suspend the fact that Isa alayhi salam is Ulul Azm, one of the greatest prophets. I mean, even if he was not one of the great four prophets, he's a prophet. I don't think you can afford to talk like that. Like as if to contrast him with the peace that Islam brought, because he explained how Fatih Makkah was peaceful, how apparently the Battle of Jamal was peaceful, how the civil war only started not immediately after, but 30-40 years after.
Well. Just kind of the sort of historical analysis in terms of Jordan Peterson asking like why Islam post Rasul Sallallahu death, you have these kind of historical situations, right? And so I think in that conversation, Mohammed Hijab went down the route of being like, oh no, it wasn't that bad. That was actually like, that was the wrong way to approach that, right?
Like, because he even mentioned, Peterson said it was bloody, and he said, well, how much bloody?
Exactly.
And he had a debate
Exactly
about this.
right.
And the frightening thing is anyone with look, this.
The first point of critique you should have made was like, it wasn't immediately upon the Prophet's death that, for lack of a better term, everything went crazy. And I think what Jordan Peterson was trying to make out was like, well, he was trying to like make an indictment of Islam as saying it never got its house in order post the Prophet's death. So it sort of like died when the Prophet, peace be upon him, died. She was like, yeah, but like, excuse the controversiality of that statement. But that's pretty much what he was trying to say. But even historically, that's a bit meh, because we had like a very stable period with the first 3 Rashidun caliphs. It was only until the 4th caliph where things really, really got a bit like awful. Sure. Like in terms of like, like within like inter-Islamic world. Like that's probably the critique you should have made. Like, it was like an immediate theological split. The theological implications were attributed to those events, like way, way, way beyond that particular period in time. So personally, that was the first critique that popped up to mind. Like, no, like Islam didn't split and break into 100 fragments upon the Prophet's death. I feel like it's a bit
violence and warfare was a commodity of the age as well.
It was.
What are they going to do when there was a political disagreement amongst the Sahaba that led to the first fitna? What were they going to do? Write a complaint? No. Vote them out in Parliament? Like, what was going to happen?
Get the complaints box.
Unfortunately, it's just a reality that warfare and
and he put himself on the back foot. And I think at this point, Peterson came out, quote unquote, like he won the argument. Like, and it tied right into the rest of the conversation as well to the end. I think Mohammed Hijab was on the back foot. He had to keep on showing how Islam is peaceful, how it can coexist. Yeah. And today he released a 1-minute video. I don't know if you saw that. Him seated on
YouTube shorts. I kept seeing a baby
short?
crying in the background.
Yeah, there was. I think this was with his family.
Mashallah.
But you could see the Thames outside, the drain. Thames looks like a drain. Okay, sorry. It's brown. It looks like Parramatta River. It's so terrible.
The Thames River.
I was like,
yeah, that's me. This is me. Like, I just see those things and I get distracted. But anyway, so he was saying like, look, this conversation shows, peace can happen and so forth.
It was that emphasis on peace, and even throughout the podcast. I mean,
that was the title of the podcast, and he had to try to milk that, and I think that's problematic, Islamically, epistemologically, if you want, because you don't have to sort of tone it down. Like, one of the questions was how many of the companions killed each other, and Mohammed Hijab kept saying how many, right? And then Peterson said, well, how much blood do you need, right? And the fact is they did. Right?
Yeah,
they did, and I think he said something like the Prophet's family were all killed after his passing, and Mohammed Hijab said no, they all died during his lifetime. It was like a really not a good discussion, like not a anyone, if you look into the Sirah.
Yeah, it's again that very kind of polemical apologist point scoring. Your religion is worse. Now your religion is worse. Now your religion did this, like that sort of thing. And I moved away from that, and this is actually really interesting because in that world, Peterson spoke about how he didn't like propositional arguments for God, remember?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the foundation of polemics. Yeah, or for atheism. Yeah. And that's the kind of polemics that I personally became sort of, how would you say, disillusioned by. I realized these things are not going anywhere. It's just that constant, it's almost a battle of the intellect between the two interlocutors, or the charisma even of the speakers and their ability to think on their feet in this way. And it has very little to do with the traditions they represent. But what is more powerful and what has often drawn people and inspired people to investigate Islam, and is that fitrah, that drawing to the truth. And that was something that resonated with Jordan Peterson a lot more. And I think that's what the foundation of Islam really is. It's like it aligns with nature. What you inclined, it should. And if it's represented in a beautiful manner and in a way that's truthful, then it should resonate with the human being at some level.
Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad says that Tawheed is irresistible. So, Mohammed Hijab made that point that triune God doesn't make any sense.
He went into this refutation mode, which I felt was a bit unnecessary.
Yeah,
moment?
that's his material, right? But that was okay, but except that Peterson was directly not asking that question, and a couple of times he said, "I'm not. You haven't answered my question," you know. And I think, but towards the end, it really devolved. I mean, there was one point, and you know, it's so embarrassing. When he looks it up, he will feel really, really embarrassed. Peterson said that, you know, look at the top 10 countries by GDP per capita, right? And then Hijab said, oh, there's 4 of them are Muslim, right?
Because of oil, my friend.
Yeah, because of oil. And then this is the part of, you know, anyone can go and look up that what's it called? I mean, Hijab said no. There's also Brunei, right? Brunei's up there, and Peterson said, why are they rich? It's like, oh, I don't know. I haven't looked it up. Yeah, and it is oil. It is oil. It is oil. It's exactly oil. And Mohammed Hijab doubled down by saying that, well, firstly, supposing that their economic success is not due to oil, that they implemented Sharia really well, right? Yeah. He said that too.
When he said the methodology is a bit, yeah.
But like he was like doing a marketing thing, and the thing, this is the more embarrassing part, because he said Brunei is doing Sharia really well, and then he said the Ottoman Empire also did it really well 400 years ago. So you have to look at, you know, different places and times to see good examples. And the example of Brunei that's most famous
is the homosexuality ruling.
Right?
That's literally
right?
That was
and
the
thing
first
is,
thing. Yeah,
the execution of the homosexuals, and you know the Ottoman Empire adopts a Hanafi position, which was that it doesn't extend to them. The had of Rajam doesn't extend to homosexuals. So what have we done here? Like, he made a meal of that one.
Yeah, so I think you brought up a good point in terms of Jordan Peterson asking questions that Mohammed Hijab didn't answer, because especially at the end, there was a good point that Jordan Peterson kind of brought up in terms of, look, you have tradition, right? You have sacred texts, and how do you kind of reconcile the idea that when it comes to, you know, following tradition, you have a holy text, and you have infallible people reading that text, and it's like, how do you...
Infallible people.
Sorry, yeah. Infallible.
Are you Shia, bro? What's going on here?
hey, with no disrespect, right? Yeah.
So fallible people are kind of doing that interpretive, you know, they're interpretive, you know, reading the text and doing that process, and so there's that kind of potentially authoritarian approach that, and it's like, how do you, you know, what do you reconcile that, or how do you explain that or situation? And I think Mohammed just like completely butchered that question hard. And Jordan B asked it like 2 or 3 times, and he still didn't answer it properly.
And Peterson made the point that you know this is why, like, Peterson is doing the whole like egalitarian kind of thing, pluralism thing, which is okay. I've got 2 points here to make. So I've got so much to say. I'm like hijacking this whole show.
No. That's why you're on this show, to make these points. Like, you're not hijacking the show.
Okay, so I'll say, remind me to come back to this point, okay? But so Mohammed Hijab right at the beginning said, I'm a traditional Muslim, and he laid out what that means, you know, Quran, Sunnah, the jurisprudence of Islam, and so on, right? And then partway through, he started saying that, and he also said, we reject Enlightenment ideals and things like this because of the, you know, the connotations it has, or not just the connotations, but substance. But then he went out of his way to say Islam is pluralistic. Yeah. And not just that. Peace treaties. I have my friends other friends, learned people, maybe you know much better than me on this, but he started saying that Islam is contractarianism. I can't say that word. Like Hobbesian, Lockean, which is so frightening because that is entirely getting away from monarchy and religion. Because the whole idea of that is okay, without God, without a sovereign, like a divine sovereign. What's our relationship? What's our relationship?
That it was going to that argument of like, you're closer to us than you think kind of argument, right? And trying to appeal Islam in a way that it's like,
maybe, but I just want to keep the emphasis on how wrong, like what he said, he doesn't understand the point, which is really sad because, you know, Peterson outlines his qualifications, Mohammed Hijab's learning at the beginning. Mohammed Hijab mistook peace treaties and written treaties for contractarianism.
No,
that's social contracts.
I think,
right, which are not written, obviously. That's just negotiated outcomes of.
I think the way I understood it was this: Mohammed Hijab made a point that Islam was pluralist, so it could accommodate liberal theory, which give rise to contracts as we know it.
But he made the specific point that we have uqud and we have ahd in
Okay,
Islam and
that's
so on,
the case,
which are like really legal devices, right?
Yeah.
Like they're written things. Like you have a peace treaty, therefore you're not going to fight,
Right, yeah.
right? As opposed to social contract, like we acknowledge the secular republic, and therefore we're not going to rebel, right?
I actually understood like micro contracts, like the theory of consent, where because the discussion, because the discussion was bound to like agreements between Muslims and non-Muslims, and like on a micro level, how these communities will interact. Because I think there was an argument about diversity there as well. What happens if you have a heterogeneous society? Sorry about that. I'm not too far away from the microphone. But yeah, I took that entire segment of podcast as it being on a very micro level, and I was like, I mean, that's a pretty okay argument to make. If you want to, if you talk to non-Muslims and say, hang on a second, so contractual theory, as you know it, is based on like very liberal premises, and Islam can accommodate that. I mean, if anything, it's probably commonality, and it's like an essential construct. So I think if that's the argument he was going for, and that's the point he was trying to make, I think it was okay. But now that I think about it, if it's on a macro view,
it was a macro thing.
Very good,
because he was trying to show that Islam we can all live together, and there is this overlap. So firstly, even though I'm traditionalist, I can be pluralistic, and that word pluralism is not it's loaded. Yeah, it's loaded. It's not like you can't say secularism and mean something else, right? It has a thank you. And that's from there it sort of just devolved. The rest of the conversation was all on the back foot, and Peterson's point. So am I coming back to that, or am I going to a different point? Which is that liberalism will give you flexibility, and tradition will give you rigidity, or even autocratic approach, right? And you're saying we've got all. Peterson's point was if Christians look after themselves and just be good, and Muslims do that too, then the world will flourish,
can be
right?
in peace.
Yeah.
And I think JP kind of said the same thing, like, oh, we can just create peace or something.
Yeah, and this is what Hijab didn't really respond to. So he asked him twice. He said this, and then he said Peterson and Hijab sort of tried to say that no, you can, stick to religious text.
I think in summary, it's like appealing to the white man sensibilities.
Exactly.
Like literally, that's how I saw that whole thing. Yeah. In that sense, and I think that's the issue, right? Like I think that whole kind of we're not. Islam isn't as bad as you think. We have this. It's kind of outlaying it. It's not really getting to the crux of the actual issue, because it kind of allows them to be who they are and be okay with it. You know what I mean? But in reality, like Islam is meant to change hearts, minds, souls. Of societies, yada yada.
I've long made the point that he's always going to be restricted by his orientation, like the sort of, how would you say, soft Salafi kind of, that dry, very not like polemical. You're not going to be able to really. I don't want to use the word penetrate is such a weird word to use. Penetrate the hearts. It's okay. I have to avoid that word.
Let's strike a chord. You're not going to strike a chord with audiences.
I can't. Every time I just the chuckle. Yeah. I'm still 12, man. Like it's so sad. Yeah, but you are not able to penetrate
strike a chord
the hearts.
Okay.
Of people with.
All right. Well, look. To help you out to recover, I will say,
SubhanAllah. People have come up to me actually and been like, mashallah, you have the podcast. I've been listening to you. You sound so mature, and it's like I haven't had one of these moments yet, and I've always been like, because I knew that there was gonna be one day where I was gonna do something that was so high school, where I was gonna start laughing at something someone says, like, and this is that moment. But yeah, no, you're not able to really kind of get into the different layers and the depth of the entire tradition. And that's why I've long said, man, you want to get someone for this, you need to get a Sufi. A Sufi who knows their stuff, obviously, who knows a little bit about where Jordan Peterson comes from, a little bit about political philosophy and philosophy, the history of philosophy.
But even with that argument, it's like, but the politics will... People will be like,
edit that out. I said nothing.
Can we just go backtrack there again?
You heard nothing.
No, because even with those Sufi figures you're talking about, the other argument is like the politics isn't the best. So it's like, who can you really have? Who can you really have?
Well, think about that, because I think this is going to be a tough one, because we're going to say things like Hamza Yusuf. Sorry, not things. Sheikhs like Hamza Yusuf.
Well, but like it's confirmed. So I just said, we just got to wait and see how it turns out. Like you're going to get your wish, Rafa.
Right.
It's going to happen. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So there'll be a podcast of John Peterson.
Okay,
Yeah,
that should
so
be interesting.
Very high chance it'll happen. So
Okay, I wanted to say, like the irony of this whole thing, this whole bringing him on and accommodating him, and you know how the conversations went. The people that are supportive of I want to say brothers. Am I allowed to say that? When he says all the mosques will welcome you, I guess it's brothers in largely speaking, are the sorts that also want to stamp their traditionalism and their traditionalist sensibilities and so forth. Yet, this whole thing plays into the cultural wars that they want to avoid. It's true. Right? Like, as in, if you, hey, are you filming me? Because it's becomes a struggle to talk. Because then that's, what does it do? It's what's it called? It's doing exactly what you don't want to do. You know, reinforcing camps. You know, reinforcing sides. Are you on the side of the pomos, or are you on the side of traditionalists? You know, and often when you look at the actual details of what's being discussed, you realize that it's missing some of those spiritual element, for instance, right? As you're trying to point out here, and it's more about are you a proper traditionalist? You know, are you going to destroy, as came up towards the end, right? Destroy nihilism.
No, and I think because is that Jordan Peterson's been around long enough to know that you're going to garner the reaction you're hoping for. Like, you invite Jordan Peterson on a podcast, or you invite him to a particular mosque, you know for a fact that you're going to appease certain aspects of our community, and you're going to alienate certain aspects of the community. So I think I definitely agree that JP is also is always a cultural sort of tank you bring into battle, and it proves a particular point.
He's a cultural war's don, bro.
He is, and that's how. Yeah, and that's pretty much that's how he came into the public sphere. It was because of that sort of that culture war, the bill in Canada, etc. And to be honest, he wasn't that. I'm sure he was a prominent academic and psychologist, well-known in academic circles, but he wasn't known in the public sphere up until that point.
You remember what brought him into the public sphere? And
I'm not going to use the pronouns. You can't mandate pronouns. I'm not going to abide by that. And I mean, all these conservatives just rode the bandwagon, and
he was thrust.
Exactly, into the spotlight, exactly as the paragon,
the champion of these, and there was that famous
gender thing, right?
Yeah.
And then his 12 rules was actually a Reddit post which blew up. So he did 12 rules for order in life, which is actually very sad because people that have commentators, analysts, whatever, have said that it's actually those who are looking for some kind of anchor, right? So, and Hijab mentioned this in the conversation, we need anchor, we need in the tradition, right? Can't deal with ambiguity, so to speak. And his 12 rules, these days we like everything numbers, 5 steps to this, or the 3 main things you need to know, So these 12 rules is actually just Christianity repackaged as a self-help book.
And it's interesting because Jordan Peterson constantly makes the point that complexity is a fact of life, and that a lot of the problems we face is because we struggle to deal with complexity, and that leads to chaos. So yeah, I've always found that pretty interesting. He knows for a fact that there is no 12 rules to get, to make sense of the world around us. And to be honest, it's actually damaging. I don't see the rise of Jordan Peterson as, him saying something completely original. It's him catering to a very dangerous and growing crowd, I think. That's what's made Jordan Peterson Jordan Peterson. It's just that
he is indicative of the time.
Yes,
he doesn't. He hasn't created the zeitgeist.
He's a reflection of something.
He is the zeitgeist.
Yeah,
and I suppose as well, going on from that, back to the point that I made initially about the depth and the profundity that I think at times was lacking, and I think it was too surface level polemical. And I found it really hard to listen to the first 45 minutes for that reason. I think that there was a missed opportunity. I actually think that Jordan Peterson is a white man, and he definitely came across as such. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the questions and the problems he sort of had, and the preconceptions he had about Islam were very typical of the middle class, sort of more academic / intellectual, European and Western people. I know that from my own experience in my family. They are exactly the same as the questions that would be discussed at a dinner table. And that is something that I noticed very quickly. There are actually profound answers to that and ways to make someone think about it beyond, oh yeah, well, the West is bad too. Oh yeah, well, Christianity is bad too. I was glad that Hijab mentioned colonialism and pushed back very quickly and strongly on that. I was glad that he did that, and that is so important. But when it came to the spiritual side of things, I think he was lacking. And what I mean by that is some of the questions about what is Islam. Now, you guys know Umar Farooq Abdullah, yeah? Sheikh Umar Farooq Abdullah. I admire him a lot. And I think that when he was asked the same question, he said, there is a fundamental connection between truth, beauty, and I think virtue, I don't want to say. And that connection, and with that truth, there are some who, I'm going to butcher this, there are some who perceive it and to catch that fragrance of truth, and they become overwhelmed by that, right? And there are some who catch a whiff, and if they're not overwhelmed, then they caught a fragment, but they didn't fully perceive it. And that was his answer. And it was kind of cryptic, right? For some, perhaps too cryptic for many. But what he's articulating there is the nature of the experience of the Muslim in relation to truth. That encounter with the divine and the spark of realization and ma'rifah, and understanding and knowledge, and the fact that, and it is we are not a merely legal or theological tradition. What is it that the most profound experiences we have? It's not learning dot points on a page. It's, Qiyamul Layl or Tarawih in Ramadan, and those experiences we have, those deeply spiritual experiences. And it's impossible to speak when asked about what Islam is and to not unpack that most profound and most important and most definitive dimension of our tradition and who we are. We're all here. We're all united by those experiences, by our relationship or our pursuit of a relationship with the divine. That's why I'm here. That's what led me from where Jordan Peterson was to here. And it befuddles me anew every single time. Every single time there's a discussion about Islam where these things are not brought up. And these things are not put at the very front of the pamphlet, the Dawah pamphlet.
If Jordan Peterson heard what Raf said right now, Jordan Peterson will be Muslim. SubhanAllah.
We're going to clip this and send it to him. In fairness, but, try to be, maintain a decorum. I think I'm projecting here big time. But Hijab tried to do that a little bit by reciting those ayat in the melody, right? And it got Peterson like, what are you doing? I think he said something like, can you explain, like, this is a matter of procedure? I like that
questioning, that he actually unpacked the real reason as to why he said that. It wasn't like, he just kind of brushed it and moved to the next thing. He's like, but why'd you do it now? Why, do you do it like this all the time? Like when you get asked this question, I liked how he unpacked that and kind of brought out the real reasons. Like, we just want to make you Muslim, have the Muslim experience, so this and that.
I mean, he said that, didn't he? I mean, that we would like you to embrace Islam, or we would like people to embrace Islam.
I got a question for everyone here. Do you think the way you've also approached this is a bit interesting, given that based on what we've seen, it felt like Peterson platforming Hijab instead of Hijab platforming Peterson? It was, right? Okay, all good. I feel like the discussion's been, Hijab's platformed Peterson and tried to, sort of give Dawah. Personally speaking, maybe we're being a bit too harsh in the sense that given Peterson was asking the questions, Hijab didn't really have that much room to really go into those sort of experiences. Because you got to remember, like, Peterson's type of guy.
He did, though. The questions that he asked would have, I believe, okay, you made that point. Go, continue with that.
No, I was just saying.
No, continue about what you were saying, because you mentioned it to me before about his description of things like submission.
Yeah, it was more like very logically
academic, right? Something you can cite. Like, you can't cite these particular experiences in academic context and say, like, I, witnessed the divine, or I felt, an incredibly powerful relationship. It did feel very academic and pristine. And I sort of understand that sort of thing, because that's the crowd you operate in. Like, that's the parameters of the discussion. But that's just my opinion. Like, I didn't expect that to happen.
No, I didn't either. And like I said, I have to be fair to Hijab in so much as he comes from a particular tradition and background and a certain orientation. and within that, he's a genius. Like, I know that what he's been able to achieve with his study and his dedication to it and his intellect and his skill in polemic, and there is a place for those polemics. I'm not saying there isn't a place for that kind of discussion. There is, and I know that I worded it in a very particular way about anxious Muslims. He's there for anxious Muslims. Anxious Muslims. They need someone like that. They need someone robust to come in and remind everyone that there is a rational foundation. And I spoke about this with Sabur Ahmed. The reason why this kind of dawah has caught on for so long is because of the onslaught Muslims have faced from Western polemicists talking about, oh, your religion's irrational. There's all these philosophical problems, and fallacies. And then you have Muslims who came out and responded to that. And that response was...
Science in the Quran.
Yeah. I mean, it started that way, but even now, we've cultivated it to a point where we're beyond that now. And it's actually quite advanced. Like, they're actually looking back into the tradition to try and find answers from that.
Well, don't you think? I mean, given what you said earlier about the experiential way of knowing Islam, if someone asks you the question, what is the core teachings and what is worship and belief, right? It's difficult to answer that. Okay, you can say 5
I would
pillars.
say that straight away. It is difficult to convey.
It's complex.
Yeah.
Wink
Right?
to Jordan Peterson.
Right. But see,
It's 12 steps.
What you just said now, I'm afraid, and inshallah I'm wrong, right? I feel this approach now in the apologist space is just a much probably better even in terms of outcomes, but it's more of the same of the 1990s 2000s science in Islam. Apologist. Yeah.
2.0.
Yeah. But we saw what came off that, sure, lots of people become Muslim. And I don't think that's a really good counter argument.
But most people who become Muslim end up stop becoming Muslims. You know that, right? Like, we know that most converts to Islam actually leave Islam as well. That's something I did a lot of research into recently. And I found certain figures generally between 2/3 and 75% of shahadas the people ends up leaving again. So the idea of getting, we bring people to Islam, it's like, but we don't, I've always used the word thoroughly Islamized versus superficially Islamized, how thoroughly Islamized are the people who are coming into Islam and the capacity to do that, and how much does the intellectual, the rational pin someone into, exactly. Once you've witnessed something, it is kufr to then deny it, right? Once you've seen the truth and the truth is aligned within your mind and you see, you truly understand, like Umar Farooq Abdullah talked about it, you truly understand or perceive of the divine in a way that it exists. Tawheed is real, and the Prophet ﷺ articulated that reality. He had experience of that reality, and his conveying of that is incredibly profound and evocative, and it resonates with me, right? You have that experience. When you truly understand that, for you to deny that, right? It's denying a truth that was at like one point in time unquestionable, that you saw it before you. I can't go and say, oh, well, no, who's Sadi? I never saw Sadi, like he doesn't exist, right? That would be crazy. You'd think that guy's crazy. But if I never knew you, I never saw you, I just heard about a guy called Sadi existing or the reasons why Sadi exists, it's possible then for me to deny that reality in a way that's a lot more simple.
I feel...
You're looking around, bro. You're doing the corner of the eyes like, oh, I don't know about this.
No, I'm thinking maybe he's making a good case for... I can't think of a joke.
Just add to Raf, like, with your point, it's like, I find that it was clear from the beginning that Jordan Peterson was looking for such an answer.
That's right.
And the proof of that when he said the word divine spark, right? And then Hijab went into very Salafi mode, like, no, divine attributes, and no, we can't, it was kind of like that straight away, that assumption. Like, he already assumed, like, he knew what he meant when he said, when Jordan Peterson said divine spark, but divine spark meant something very different from Jordan Peterson's perspective. And I felt that, like, even he was looking for that kind of Sufi spiritual, like, sort of, interpretation of what, I guess, what a prophet is and what their role is in terms of, virtues, or in terms of how they're portraying Islam for the spiritual aspect, all that kind of thing. But it was just kind of lost through that very Salafish interpretation of, no, we have divine attributes only to Allah. We don't have people on divine.
To be fair, I think I know why Hijab brought it up, and I think Peterson was sort of suggesting, like, why draw the line at prophet? if they have a sort of different status to men, isn't that like a form of divinity in and of itself? I think maybe that's why you sort of got the Salafi mode activated saying, hang on a second, you got to be careful with your definitions here. Islam is very clear about this.
But I find that you could have just asked, like, what do you mean by, like, he asked it way later.
That's fair enough.
Like, you don't have to concede. You don't have to. You can still,
Well, I agree. Like when Jordan Peterson's divine spark, I'm like, hey, okay. You're talking about maybe perhaps some sort of fitra argument here or some sort of like an intense connection. I was like, oh, so that's the first thing that came into my head. But I think what clearly Hijab registered was, we got to be very careful here because now we're in very dangerous territory, and Islam's clear about this.
I think he could have made that point and still, because there is more to it. He did mention the ayah وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has elevated Bani Adam above all other creations. So there's that status of humanity. But then there's other aspects which are not saying we're divine, but فَنَفَخْنَا مِنْ رُوحِنَا, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed His spirit into Adam alayhi salam, right? And He created Adam in His image, not in the Christian understanding. This is a hadith, by the way. Of course. So there is so much there, more there that was sort of, I felt like it was left out, and maybe it was to just underscore, no.
Yeah.
We're not Christians.
I think it all goes back to Rafa's point. It just felt like a debate and saying, gotcha, your definitions aren't right. But again, I think Jordan Peterson's always mentioned this, and we've got to be very specific about our words, and maybe Hijab was in that mode.
You don't have to concede to that when you say you got to be specific to your words, because he is not consistent with that at all. So like, I think sorry, I just got worked up there. It's because I just thought of that. I thought of that racism point. It's like he was questioning someone that was blatantly, people were bullying him, to say the least, and like, what racism?
And he knew nothing of the situation about Azim Rafiq.
It's interesting because Jordan Peterson is like this very dangerous brand of like some form of stoicism that doesn't really fight oppression, it just internalizes. Does that make sense? Like every time you bring up something that systematically oppresses people.
Like
Jordan Peterson, JP crowd's like, no, you just got to handle it, and the buck stops there. You can't revolt, you can't fight the injustice. I think
that's why he sort of denied the whole colonization. Like he tried to, he's like, oh, that
potentially,
part, like, maybe colonization, but from Islam and after
potentially,
Did you see how that bit went? And this is just like a stylistic thing that bothered me, because maybe I'm just a boomer, but that Hijab pushed back, like was talking over Jordan Peterson many times when he was doing that. So he said, I think that's a bad argument. That was what Peterson said. And then he said, no, it's a good argument. It's a good argument. Yeah, very good argument, right? And then as I was hoping not to make this comment, but since we're here, I don't think it's anything evil. I mean, people notice this, like this sort of stylistic thing matters. I think, at the beginning he would say Dr. Jordan Peterson, and one time he dropped doctor, and he went back and corrected himself, and then the further the interview went, the more he started saying, listen, Jordan Peterson. No, listen, Jordan Peterson, right?
It descended into...
Boss. Yeah.
Bro. Towards the end, Jordan Peterson's like, I'll talk to you later, man. And then Mohammed Hijab's like, talk to you later, bro, man.
Yeah.
Like it just descended.
It just descended in a downward spiral.
At the last 10 minutes,
Adab went down.
Adab went down, but at the end, there was like, bromance.
Is it bromance?
It's 100% bromance.
Bro, the shed the tears. And bro...
And then
the photo went start going around on social media, just like Jordan Peterson's in tears.
And then someone is, look, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to say it, and inshallah it happens. This is terrible. This is my memory side coming out. Okay. So Mohammed Hijab reciting the last ayah of Surah Al-Hashr, and then you collate that with Jordan Peterson crying.
Boom.
Social media go wild.
That's it.
Give us your best. Give us your best shot.
And you can have the emotional, you will cry.
Hidden Muslim.
The
secret Muslim.
The clickbait. Prominent Western academic falls in love with.
No, man. Again, like on that point, I was thinking about Abdul Hakim Murad, and the best how he converted. Well, he didn't.
Sorry,
convert.
can I just add quickly? Jordan Peterson is the Najashi of our times, secret Muslim, no one knows, and ruling the Christian world. And he's just secret Muslim. Just
if he was the Najashi of the time, he'd be like, "What oppression in Mecca? They're maiming and torturing Muslims. But be specific. We can't have this ambiguity and like
that's
this
it.
high level, you know.
This is institutionalized.
What's the word?
Yeah.
What's the word they say? Low resolution.
That's it.
I need high resolution. Kind of low resolution.
He's gonna roll his eyes and be like, "Oh, was it the Qurayshi elites?"
I'm very tempted to do my Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, look.
Nah, come on, bring it out. I want to hear it. I want to hear the
Come on,
Canadian.
I did a few things. You gotta.
I don't know
make it
about Islam.
That's like the Canadian from like How I Met Your Mother sort of thing. And it's more like, you know, life is complex. It's we can't understand. You know, and then he starts crying and breaking down. I don't know. It's like Kermit. You know, sorry, I don't know, Kermit the Frog.
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it. Just
No,
respect.
go on. He knows about Kermit the Frog and he took that very well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
he goes, someone pointed out that I sound like Kermit the Frog.
I've been
and then I looked-
compared to Kermit the Frog, and I've come to the realization that nihilism isn't the way to go, and nor is absurdism. We've got to really. There's too much chaos in the world.
My Jordan
In the
Peterson
world.
voice is actually the same as Bane from Batman. You know, now you have my permission to die. I was more like that.
I don't know, man. Look, it's like, I respect Jordan Peterson, and obviously everyone. I'm never going to impersonate everyone ever again. But
This wasn't, no, look, it's fine.
Look, man, if someone, it
he's
doesn't
cool.
matter. I can take it. Someone makes a joke about my accent.
No,
it's
no,
just
it's
like,
just-
He was on, what's his name? That comedian, Indian comedian.
Hassan bin Hajj.
No, old timer.
Russell Peters.
Russell Peters was on his show and he told him about Kermit the Frog part. And he took it very well.
there you go.
Yeah. Don't ask me why I listened to it.
But you know, like the conservative alt-right crowd has a thing with frogs. What's the name? Pepe
Pepe
the Frog. There you
sad
go.
frog.
So I don't know. Science, man. Just gotta be careful.
I want to ask as well, and we didn't talk about this. Part of the podcast when Mohammed Hijab kept talking about defensive jihad. In the sense, I think that's a really, I think there's a lot to, and we were talking about this on WhatsApp last night, right? So like the idea that he kept, he actually said there was no, every battle before the conquest of Mecca was defensive jihad. I don't know if that's even factually true statement at all. So I think like that's very blatantly wrong. And especially like we sort of had a back and forth, like would you call Battle of Badr like defensive? I kind of said like I wouldn't even use like those kind of, I just said like I wouldn't see it as a defensive war. Because of the pretext to how Battle Badr sort of panned out. So like the point is like if someone like hears him, the way he's like very authoritative in the sense that he said, oh no, they're all defensive wars, and he made it as if it's a fact. Whereas someone like I don't know, a non-Muslim sort of looks into it and then it's a lot more complicated. I find that that's when he quickly like I think his sort of veil or the wall that he puts up as if it was some defensive jihad the whole time. And because let's just be frank, like to a white non-Muslim, what a defensive like battle is viewed as is like completely different, right?
And a good thing, like or a celebrated thing. And that's the trouble. Like, isn't that very liberal?
Yeah, look, I think
to be content about that.
I think we're talking about this. What we're doing is we're failing to recognize that was a wildly different time, and we're imposing
Which
our
Mohammed
particular
Hijab did mention. He did mention.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I think credit to him. I think he didn't butcher it to the extent where we're like, hang on a second, you did an absolute mess of this. I think he did mention that at the time, really, everything was game. Like the borders were fluid. You had to do what you had to do. That was the rules of state warfare. That's basically the way things ran. But I think today, everyone's sort of I think. Yeah, basically, I sort of interpret it in the sense that it wasn't offensive in the way we understand it today. It was more so like you had to do it, or else you're in trouble.
I don't know about that. So it's someone he made that argument that the Persians and the Romans, the Arabian Peninsula was in the middle, and they would have taken over anyway. Syria commentators say the exact opposite. Really? That the Persians and the Romans didn't care about this.
That's established. Like, they did not care.
They didn't care about this Arab wasteland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever, in fact, some of the letters that went out to Muqawqis, I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah.
He was like, what are these poor beggars doing here asking me to convert to their religion? Here's some gifts, go away.
Yeah,
That's what he
yeah.
did, right? He said, look, it sounds truthful. I heard, my priest saying some prophet is due, but I thought it'd be in Syria. Look, this is not the worst thing, but here's some gifts, go away. That's what he did. Like, he wasn't bothered.
And Rasulullah called him kadhab, right? Liar.
No,
like,
that's Musaylama.
No. I think he called
him the Kadhab.
I think.
I mean, look, he basically did kufr.
Yeah,
He denied. The Prophet ﷺ sent an envoy, sent a letter, and he turned him down.
Khabith.
Khabith. Oh, okay.
He basically got champed. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, champed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Off you go back to desert now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Gave him clothes, concubines, and Prophet was one of the concubines was Prophet Maria, and he had Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a daughter with a son with her, Ibrahim, who passed away at tender age.
Yeah, so there's that. So going back to that kind of defensive jihad thing, I think that because the defensive jihad, it's sort of painted the way he's saying it. It kind of it goes into the kind of broader picture of Islam, peace treaties, Islam, defensive jihad, Islam. Like it's that kind of narrative that's being pushed where it's like it's not really how Islam was, and so I find that it's gonna be problematic and easy to critique if someone looks into it a bit deeper. And in saying that, even we had this discussion. I think you kind of made the point that the Battle of Badr was like defensive war. I'm sure there's discussions, but I just think that the lead up to the Battle of Badr, with the caravans and how essentially Rasulullah wanted to raid the caravan, Abu Sufyan, I think someone from the Qurayshi leaders amongst them saw them and they dodged the kind of, they were going to meet, but they dodged them and then came back and had an army. And then later Rasulullah sent another caravan and spies outside of Mecca to see what the situation is happening, and then that's when there was a caravan from the Qurayshi side that came early and they raided and killed someone in one of the holy months, and that started a whole fiasco then as well. So that is very it's hard to say. It's defensive kind of box that he's kind of painting. It's very offensive, and it's deliberate kind of way to make extra money, etc. And there's a battle going on, tussle there. Whereas if it's hardline or defensive jihad, I don't think you can use that argument. And
look, the thing
so
is,
I think that's narrative is very problematic. That's what I'm just trying to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually very clear in Islam. If we want to be traditionalist, right? They're both there. Jihad al-Dawah and Talab, right? Jihad al-Talab is conquest. It's they didn't do anything to you. You go out there because you don't recognize people living under kufr, or them not.
You don't recognize the state or an authority based on kufr.
Yeah,
you allow people to have to be kuffar in the state. That's fine.
Individuals,
yes.
Yeah,
but the state itself is illegitimate. Yeah. You have a mandate of perennial expansionism. Yeah. That's how it is in Islam. Take it or leave it. But
He struggled to straddle that, and I think that was because it was a loaded thing.
Consciousness and the orientation of
the whole talk. It was the title of the talk is what is it? Peace.
Bridges to peace.
Let's look it up. Let's do this properly.
We forgot.
Do our homework.
We forgot the title.
No.
All this discussion, we don't know the name of it.
That leads me to think about this. I was thinking about
it was Islam and the possibility of peace, right? Sorry, beg your pardon. That's an ad coming on. We're not sponsored by the good guys.
I was thinking about what anyone would make of us sitting here in this room in Villawood, criticizing the titans of the age, Mohammed Hijab and Jordan Peterson, with this sort of self-assuredness and self-righteousness.
Some Sufi orient will be we need the tazkiyah,
Hey, someone will be in our comment section being well, why are you guys talking about it? Who's listening to you? It's well, why are you listening to us?
Check you're here commenting. No, don't do this.
You're here commenting.
Then it becomes some podcast where they're it is an echo chamber.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Come down to Bankstown. Come down.
Well, I think partly because the warlord comment was the main sort of. Well,
that was the and yeah. I respect, and I wanted to make this point. I respect Mohammed Hijab for pulling and being very insistent upon that point and the colonialism and pulling him up straight away on that. That visceral response and that kind of he was angry, man. Like I said, he gave the pissed off vibes. He wasn't happy with that. And
he never recovered from that. From then on, it was Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, that's it. That's when he lost. That's when he lost his respect, bro.
Before it was kind of loose. It was a loosely attached atom to the
that's it.
Proton to the
and then electron. It became bro, if he said one more problematic thing, he would have been Jordo. He would have been going right now.
Jordo from the Shire.
Cheese Jordo. Thanks. Yeah.
Are we gonna do this? Are you going to do this?
Oh, yeah, shirt off. I mean, look, I was disappointed I didn't get to see the shirt off.
Can someone explain? I actually don't know.
To be honest, I'm joking. I wasn't disappointed. I was very glad. The first time I saw it,
Can someone explain?
Jordan Peterson would have taken off his shirt.
I'm serious. Can someone
Okay.
explain to me what actually happened with that? So I read about this controversy,
Oh,
but I
shirt
actually
off?
wasn't
to be
privy
honest,
to it.
look, I still struggle to understand it. Like, what compelled him to take off his shirt? Like, I'm just really like,
Which part of Gorap is this?
no. I mean, I was just watching. I was like, were you actually like trying to project some sort of like boxing sort of like
Yeah.
you're gonna really tussle with the
It's very
Chinese
much on
state?
brand, isn't it?
Oh,
So the
I think
the
people
thing is
said that
they were-
like he's got his aura like
mask
there.
was-
It's
the
all right.
mask was on brand.
It's justified.
this is a
But
different
even, like,
topic. This. No. What I mean is, sorry, because this you can do a whole conversation on this because I call this and I've coined it Khabibian Dawah. Yeah.
Bro, trademark this. We're gonna
Yeah,
make
yeah.
shirts on this.
You know, think
Khabibian
about it
Dawah.
because you excuse all those excesses,
Yeah.
right? And you look for the masculinity, you look for the manhood, you look for the, the staunchness, right? And then, the fact that they're punching each other in face and whatever, and all the rest of it, in the UFC's corporate and so forth. But you don't like it?
well, to be honest, the thing I think I told Tanzim and Rafael this when the video first came out. I was just really confused as to why there was a mask and Batman music at the beginning of the video. Like, yeah. So look at Hijab's video.
So the
there's a
Salafis
Batman
let
trailer
that-
music. So
The
the Batman.
Salafis let that slide.
Yeah. I was like, you're wearing a mask and there's Batman music in the background. I was like,
Holy moly, I missed
that was on brand. Yeah. So that was on brand. So it was Christopher Reeves's the Batman trailer music. I think it's like a halal version of a Nirvana song. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? I messaged you guys. It's in the archives, guys. I messaged you. And I was like, this is a really confusing part. I mean, the shirt coming off was like, now I'm even more confused. Like,
So can you
what's going on here?
explain the origin of this Khabibian Dawah? Like, because if we say that, no, I mean, it's important because Mohammed Hijab, and I mentioned the point before how he gave pissed off vibes at points throughout the podcast, yeah? Like he's getting angry, he gets fired up, he gets ticked off. And I was impressed or like pleased at least, or relieved actually at that he did at the points, those two things, like the definitions of a warlord and so forth, how he was seemed annoyed by that, and then the colonialism thing, like yes, it is a good argument, so that adversarialism and that kind of like machismo, like where you rip off your shirt and you posture and you beat your chest, like what's the psychology of that? Where does it come from?
I think Muslim men, and this may seem all woke and whatever, I don't care. We're
That's masculine, brother.
Yeah, well,
That's
it's
what
the
you did
opposite.
now.
So we feel emasculated. In fact, we feel emasculated by our, white collar, middle class lives. The corporations own us. We're just economic inputs. We want to be traditionalist in this hyper plastic consumerist world, and so Khabib comes out and beats the crap out of McGregor, who represents all the vileness of excesses of whiteness and racism, you can say, and all the rest of it. So when Khabib, does that, and he even takes off and takes flight, after the victory, that's symbolic of so much that we don't have. So, anyone, so therefore, so much gets suspended, that, all of a sudden, jurisprudence and all of that takes a back seat, and so this is a continuation of that. I think, even the Dawah in the park, that's their speaker's corner is subhanAllah, I remember
Fights, have physical fights there.
yeah, well, look, not to remember, I mean, not all the time, right? Like that's quite rare. But like, it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be like punch someone in the face. But like, it's all like that. I remember some speakers, they lose their voice because they've been shouting for so long, and obviously nothing to take away from their sincerity. But it's kind of like this whole debate with and accommodating Jordan Peterson with all his incoherences. It's trying to make something that's not there. Like it's trying to build traditionalism at home from the textbooks, and without being able to still sever ourselves from we are moderns, we are Westerners, So you want to do both in a way. Like you want to come out a strong 1950s man, because I remember two words that really bothered me. And I was like, surely you know how problematic it is. No, destroyed. Well, there's that, but Mohammed Hijab said to Jordan Peterson that you are all for traditionalist values, including the nuclear family.
Oh yeah, that's like the first thing
Yeah,
you said.
yeah.
Just jumped to that.
And
Like, wait, what?
I had a brain explosion, right? And I was thinking that this is the trouble. The traditionalism that you're talking about is 20th century ideals of the West, right? Not necessarily, and which is frightening because it's not necessarily Islamic.
Yeah, how do you fit your 4 wives and 12 concubines into that?
Sorry?
How do you fit your 4 wives and 12 concubines into nuclear family?
Right.
It's a very strange looking nuclear thing
Well,
there.
the whole idea of the nuclear family is capitalist, right? It's that you move to the urban centers, right? You have you go to work and you sever from the village where you came from, where you know lots of people serve different purposes and life goes on in this agrarian world, right? But the nuclear family takes care of that. You know, you've just got a romantic sexual relationship, a couple of kids at most, and you know, it's a very new invention. It's like 150 years old, if that, right? And to say that Jordan Peterson is for that, and we are for that, and that's traditionalism, you know. So
we're grasping for straws, like we're it's
arbitrary almost, right?
Yeah, and it comes from a position where, you know, we ourselves know our place in the sense that, you know, we're just looking to find our way into, you know, the sort of heterodoxy that's been established in the past 100 years and position ourselves a bit and say, hang on a second, you know, we're just as traditional. We can sort of grab onto, you know, what's there. It's why we're seeing like these weird awkward items like Judeo-Christian values, you know, why Islam can contribute to that sort of discussion and alliance. It's really awkward. It's like you see it like a lot, you know, like this new sort of interfaith movement among the smart young lads on campus. The people just really want, you know, Islam to be, you know, part and parcel of that Judeo-Christian worldview.
Yeah, no, I have a question for both of you then on that, yeah. How much of this camp's pushback against the traditional camp, and I don't say traditional in this terms of like traditional because like we're all traditional here, yeah? We all follow a madhab, we're all orthodox, so we don't mean orthodox, but like this quote unquote neo-traditional, proto-traditional, quasi-traditional, in quotation marks. I want to ask you guys how much of the pushback to Marxism is more related to that kind of deeply embedded capitalist, very modern Western liberal infusion there, and their reaction to Marxism has very little to do with Orthodox Islam, and their reaction to the left has very little to do with Orthodox Islam, but rather to do with their sympathies and the influence that the kind of Western right has had over their ideology.
Massive, I think. Oh, not massive, but there have been instances where you can say, hang on a second, you're trying to paint Islam as like this free market sort of hyper-capitalist, free trade, you know, the Smith before Adam Smith. If that makes sense. Like we were the Adam Smith before Adam Smith. You know, we sort of, you know, realized that, you know, Marxism was never going to work. Islam was, you know, pro, you know, venture capitalism, trade. It's like you're seeing, you know, like this
family as well.
And the family, yeah, exactly right. And there's like this very awkward Muslim crowd who will give you like, oh, you know, Islam should be implemented. You know, no tax. It's perfect. It aligns really well with, you know, traditional mainstream critiques of Marxism. It's also like this weird, you know, Marxism, like cultural Marxism now. They've attributed it to sort of like all the ails of like woke society, you know, very Jordan Peterson-esque, right? You blame everything on cultural Marxism. I'm pretty sure I don't know what cultural Marxism means. I don't even know if cultural Marxism is properly defined. It's probably not even a thing, right? And stuff like that, right? So I think potentially it could be very reactionary. And, you know, the Khadija was a businesswoman, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's sort of very capitalist language to push back against Marxism, which is interesting because, in my opinion, Marxism played a massive role in the way a lot of resistance movements in the Islamic world came to fruition. You know, many parties, right? Islamists and non-Islamists. Palestine, big example, right? You had, you know, for a long, long time, the popular mainstream resistance or the public-facing resistance to the West were Leninist Marxists, like genuine Leninist Marxists. Arab nationalists, I mean, Arab socialism took on aspects of Marxism and shunned aspects it didn't like. I mean, that's why the term's called Arab socialism. So potentially it could be like reactionary to that sort of thing, where, you know, in some really awkward level, capitalism is like sort of reclaiming, well, you know, capitalism was more Islamic and less foreign to Islam than the Marxism that we've seen in the past century. Potentially that's at play there. And I've sort of realized it among some people because there's always that pushback against Marxism because it did really take the Islamic world by storm. Potentially that's my thesis. Very complex thesis. I think there's a lot of things going on. But yeah, I sort of agree with what you're saying, that there has been a resort to very capitalist ways of thinking to push back against, a very strong Marxist movement in the Islamic world.
Jordan Peterson says like things are complex. So your reason
is
complex. It doesn't mean
my reasoning, my mental vomit is very complex. Be a postmodernist, take from it what you will, nothing is true, whatever. But that's my thesis, and take or leave it.
That is so tough. As you were explaining yourself or asking a question, I was like, yeah, man, can you explain it then? Because this is such a tough one. But thanks, Mahmoud, for going first, because I was like really struggling with this one. But from what you mentioned, I recall that this has a connection to the tussle that happened in the 20th century between the Soviet Union and the West, America, and how Muslims featured in that, right? Which is, Afghanistan, and the ulama at the time were saying things, because, communism is very in-your-face kufr, right? Like, materialistic and so forth, right? And so it's very easy to say, cross it off, right? And yet see capitalism as, it's approximately Protestant or something like that, and therefore probably more God-oriented or something. Yeah, but it's only because it won, so to speak. It's not because it's inherently worth anything, but it's because America, the Soviet Union collapsed, and then there was arguments. I remember this. I was only a kid, but in the 90s, this is just a typical, your madrasa teacher would make this comment that communism is kufr because it doesn't allow you to, apart from the fact that they deny, it was not compatible with Islam because zakat would be abolished because you don't have personal ownership anymore. You don't have private property anymore, right? So it doesn't make sense even from its economic arguments. It doesn't, it's necessary ontologically or, otherwise, like, in its very fibers, it's un-Islamic. Not just the fact that it denies God, but hey, free market, that you can own things, and you can flourish, and so.
And the usual Khadija radiallahu anha was a businesswoman. All the Sahaba were mergers of some kind or another.
That's the price of the market,
Yeah.
But to be proper traditionalist, you have to push back on that because otherwise sisters are going to get jobs. So you have to be mindful of that one too nowadays.
Traditionalists always find a way to be misogynistic.
This is I think part of the Khabibian deal, and I'm not having a go at Khabib himself, of course. This is Khabibian. Right, that to be proper masculine and to be proper man, you have to keep them in their place, so to speak, and that's what that is. Because they'll be very quick to, point out, that was before prophethood, or there's a dispute about exactly when they did marry. He may not have been 25, might have been much. She may have been a lot younger, and things like the age gap was a lot smaller, or that she did trade via men. She did mudaraba. 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 Wakala, like she appointed agents to trade on her behalf. She sat in Mecca and did nothing, and she just had a lot of inherited wealth. Like they actually downplay all of it to make it. Just make a point. Yeah, to make the point, right?
Yeah, but you can downplay that, but then there's so many other examples of female Sahaba being very sort of blunt, abrasive, direct in the way that they spoke to people and the way they spoke to authority.
Even on that very point, you don't need to go to this. You just go to the fiqh itself and you see what it says. Can a woman work or not? And like the Sheikh Hatem al-Hajj is a wonderful sheikh to listen to on this topic, I find. He's Hanbali, very traditionalist. And he says in the Hanbali school, it's allowed. There's an example of a Sahabiya who used to go out to work and attend to her orchard. How do you say that word? She used to earn her own living. I think she was a divorcee. If you want to have the legal discussion, like these things are far from, there's one traditional point, one traditionalist view, Yet the Khabibian perspective would be to downplay this and to upplay the 1950s nuclear family. Yeah. Which is how Islamic is that? Like, come on, man. You're talking about America.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's a great paradox, isn't it? Yeah. Like it's very unfortunate, and that's why I was getting at with my question about Marxism and the reaction to Marxism and the left. And it's ironic, right, that the great one of the many sort of slogans that I've seen pop up is, the right's bad, but like they're obviously the enemies of Islam, but the left is deceptive and they try to, flatter us with all these rights and they sneak into our communities, and then all of a sudden women are belly dancing in front of non-mahrams and
Those more LGBTQ.
Isn't this very postmodern? Like to do that, like to say, hey, it's all relative and. You know?
Yeah, but no, like they say all of that stuff, right? And that's literally one of the any YouTube video about left right, you'll see Muslims having this discussion. Any Facebook discussion, you'll see, yeah, well, the left is. But what you mentioned before, right, about how communism and Marxism was obvious kufr, but the kufr of like late unbridled capitalism is much more subtle, and the fact that we're living,
which is what Jordan Peterson is all for.
Bro, he's a Westerner. Like
to bring it back to him.
Well, no. See, JP is interesting because I think JP's always been in the argument where you don't social like some sort of social democrat interesting vibe going on there. Whereas like, look, the left is right in a sense where you want some sort of distribution of wealth because severe inequality is just chaos. But at the same time, you kind of have like a flat structure because we're lobsters at the end of the day and we have some sort of organizational thing, right? Like, very basic. I'm like, and I was sort of like, yeah, cool, I get that. That's like some sort of like, I'm certain that's a very common rationalization of the way people view capitalism and communism, that sort of thing. But my other point as well is, sorry about that, Raf, like the traditionalists are also a bit academically lazy, so to speak, right? They'll just call anything with an ism or socialism like, yeah, that's Marxism, obviously communism and kufr, right? Like Arab socialism was a very interesting phenomenon. And I know for a doubt that they haven't grappled as to why it's called Arab socialism. And there's a reason why many ulama were actually, sort of okay with it. And, it was really like a Marxism that could actually, accompany or work well with Islam. That's why it's called Arab socialism. Like, the Nasserism really rejected the lack of religiosity in these particular movements. So I think that's what I was like, that's something that always irks me. It's like, it's not Marxism or communism per se. And you can't just say, you can't just like not engage with it because, there was scholarly backing there at the time. It's like the scholars weren't dumb.
It's not nearly as clear cut as
no, exactly right. They're trying to make it out to be.
And if you go further back, so some of them would say, well, look, what we really want is the Khilafah. Let's just do that, okay? And if you do that, then you have to look at the Ottomans, right? And if you look at the 19th century, the Ottoman modernity, they were actually engaging with the right, so to speak, or liberalism. The Ottoman Empire was adopting the French ideals of the three things: fraternity, this and that. Yeah, and
even looked at it like a modern nation state.
Yeah, well, they did, and they abolished the Muslim Dhimmi distinction, and they adopted the Ottoman citizenry idea, and they adopted a constitution that was Belgian. Right, and the much celebrated Sultan Abdul Hamid II, rahimahullah, that's the constitution he suspended, and that's the constitution he had to restore in the end. Right, so like we grappled with the stuff that you like now, by the way, like the stuff this right wing, conservative thing that seems to be more Islamic or closer or less kufr. Right, we've been there before, brother. Right. And it actually created and by the way, all of this is not settled. These are the discussions we need to have. Right? And instead of things like the Khabibian phenomena, right? What it does is it gives you the anchoring point that Mohammed Hijab pointed out, and so did I think he petitioned Jordan Peterson to look at that. That hey, Islam gives you the point, or tradition gives you, not Islam obviously, we mean small t tradition in a sense, gives you some anchor, unlike this postmodernist and unlike these woke people, right? But yet we haven't dealt with any of it, neither the right nor the left. And the way you've articulated about the Arab socialism, that it's not nearly as obvious. And likewise, if that makes people uncomfortable, it makes me very uncomfortable because I'll say because this personal experience of being in HT before, like that was. Really seen as what took the ummah back. That was one of the narratives, right? But if you look at the other side, I mean, I'm repeating myself here, with what the Ottomans faced, those questions are not answered yet. The Ottomans adopted capitalism. They adopted mercantile capitalism. Like, they had banks and so forth. Like this Islamic finance and all that stuff you have now is a very recent phenomenon. It didn't exist then. I think I had something else to say, but that's all right.
I think it's super important to go into this because we asked the question, when we come to discuss this. Why are we discussing this? Why is this such a phenomenon? Why is Jordan Peterson, Mohammed Hijab, the greatest crossover event in the history?
Since Salahuddin.
Yeah.
Well,
the greatest crossover.
I just realized in between the moon landings and this debate, there was one other thing, which was Peterson versus Zizek.
Yes.
Come on, come on. That was
Cataclysmic.
What did Muhammad Ali do? His Zaire? What was the boxing match? The
Rumble in the Jungle. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a boxing match of the century in the 20th century, and that's actually the boxing match of the century. But this Zizek and Peterson was the debate of this century, and in that Zizek, I've said this elsewhere, but just to go on the record, Zizek pointed out Peterson's hypocrisy very directly with the joke of Niels Bohr. Do you remember that? He said that Peterson, you're a scientist, you believe in social Darwinism and so forth, and lobsters, and what do you call it? Why do you pretend that this stuff is anything more worthwhile than any other? It's just science. You're not really a Christian. You're like Niels Bohr, who had a horseshoe. The guy's a physicist, right? 80 years ago, lived 80 years ago, something like that. He had a horseshoe on his porch, on his front yard, hanging off his roof for good luck. And so his friend said to Niels Bohr, "Hey, dude, why do you have that? You're a scientist. You don't believe in this superstition." He said, "Well, even if you don't believe in it, it works." Right? And that's what Peterson's doing. He doesn't have to believe in this stuff, but it works. So he will tell you about archetypes and whatnot. And, in his book, it'll be 50% Bible. But yeah, man, this is where we're having this discussion. This is where, we're being platformed and platforming him.
The reason is because of what you guys have managed to unpack just there. The trends and the development of the prevailing ideological trends and trajectories of the Muslim world in this century. And the origins of them. And I think that, what you've mentioned about Khabibian Dawah has to be patented ASAP, man. That's
well, I mean, look, some people did enjoy Mohammed Hijab taking his shirt off, but
Also, but that's another thing. So this is specifically what I was going to get to. What are the sort of unifying aspects?
Before you do that,
go on.
This must be mentioned. We need to have the fiqh of covering your aura with a bum bag.
Hey,
these are the
this.
Okay.
This is where the ulama have failed us.
That's very, very Khabibian.
It's
okay?
true. We gotta find out.
Like if a sister covered her head with a bum bag, right? We need to do that properly.
They were saying did Hijab's pants have no pockets or something? I was really curious. I was I haven't seen one of those in years. Oh no, it's just an interesting video. That's all I say.
So it doesn't matter what you're going to say. This is more important.
No, I think that's very profound, especially the pockets, man.
Yeah, I was saying
very curious indeed.
Yeah, and then someone tried to cover him up halfway through his talk.
Yeah,
because all right, we've seen enough of that.
He's got to beat him down and be like, Maliki opinion, bro.
But I can't believe. Sorry, I think early in the episode I said Christopher Reeves is Batman. Sorry, Christopher Reeves is Superman like that. Matt Reeves is Batman. Sorry, Matt Reeves is the Batman trailer music. Was in a video. Just listen to it. It was like a Nirvana song.
That's so interesting.
I was so confused.
I
was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, subhanallah, man, subhanallah. In trying to be masculine and manhood and all of this, the things.
He's still seeing Batman, so
that's what I was going to get to. I was going to actually ask about masculinity, manhood, and the connection. So Jordan Peterson's very big on the ideas of personal responsibility.
Really
it's a proper thunderstorm, man. For people in England who don't know what that is, it's when it rains really heavily for a short period of time at the end of a hot day.
I'm pretty sure the English only see the sun once a year. I'm sure we know what rain and thunder is.
The rain only ever falls in a misty drizzle. It never actually.
Oh, really?
That's it. Bro, I remember one of my family friends came out here from England a few years ago, and they're like, it started raining. They started freaking out. They're like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I'm like, "It's raining." And they're like, "The drops are huge. The drops are huge.
It's got water in it."
Yeah. They're like, "What is this?" It's just it's not that damp, cold, just mist that just covers everything. It actually rains hard and they're tripping out. So that's what you can hear in the background.
Who says boys in the cave is an education? I'm just learning something new.
There you go. You've got something to take, even if you just hate every single thing about us. Maybe fans of DH or Sajid Lifam who are listening in, maybe they're not huge fans of us, but
well, I mean, look, they've only heard my white voice. If they saw how white I am, they're just
the point.
And if they saw my shirt,
Yeah, I don't know. We're in trouble, aren't we?
It's a combination of things.
The comments are going to come in thick and fast.
Yeah.
The point that I was gonna make though is like about the idea, like the centrality of the ideas of masculinity, manhood, the popularity of these ideas, and the orientation towards what you mentioned before about the stoicism and the personal responsibility, right? That is fundamental to Jordan Peterson's success, yeah? And that's also like one of the main reasons the Muslim community has really picked up. It's this great train of that, you know, masculinity. And then you have these movements, like some of them are positive. I don't even think all of the aspects of it are negative, but yeah, I wanted to ask you about it. You got something to say?
Yeah, I think I do. I think one of my other thesis, one of my theories as to why that sort of Stoic mentality has taken off and, you know, caught fire in the Muslim community is that it's made certain toxic behaviors that we exhibit, feel okay. So, for example, that sort of emotional detachment, you know, you're going to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, not do anything about it, let it eat inside at you, and it's really going to put on that sort of brave face at no matter what cost it comes to you. That could be very painful and lead to like some traumatic, explosions and outbursts. But the Jordan Peterson, crowd will be like, no, you have to take it. You have to, embody that. But we know for a fact, like that leads to some very emotional detachment. Sorry? Like at least like some sort of like really like for example, like my father probably like fathers in the community or uncles or individuals from sort of exhibit that sort of mentality, and we can sort of sort of justify and take that on. Hopefully, I'm making sense. Like it's just making behaviors that we currently exhibit justified. That's sort of really like stoic, No, I'm not making sense.
But no, you're making perfect sense. Yeah. But they explain it in a way of like they're pushing back against the Marxist tide and the demasculization. Masculinization. Yeah,
interesting. I don't think potentially the Muslim community does care about that, but I think that's probably like what I've seen. Especially like I'm not quite sure. Have boys from your high school taken a liking to Jordan Peterson? I know like everyone a lot. Yeah, exactly right. So a lot of like at least 75% of my cohort, I went to an all boys high school, took a massive liking to him because of that reason alone. It gave them a purpose, and the fact that they were resisting and internalizing all that pain and trauma, whatever, like that was their their call to action, so to speak. It was how they made sense of the world, and that's what. Yeah,
otherwise it's too hard. Like
exactly right.
So you've got and Allah forgive us for this, like the parents' generation, especially the masculine man side. Like I say that because it sounds like we're disparaging them, but it's just for a purpose, which is, that's too hard to live with, and it's one way to make sense of it is by saying, hey, start with tidying your room. That's not one else's fault. That's your fault. That's the Petersonian mabda, or how do you say the beginning point,
But we've all watched Gladiator, right? So there was a fantastic video essay on YouTube about an individual applying Jordan Peterson to Gladiator. And you realize that video does something really, really interesting. It doesn't even consider the fact that Gladiator, or Maximus, actually tries to reform and fight the oppression of Rome. All the video focuses on is how he just how he internalizes all the pain and trauma and lives on and moves on with the current situation he finds himself in. It doesn't consider the fact that he's fighting for a better outcome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a fight against authority.
And you realize that a lot of the time, those Jordan Peterson types really take away that sort of community activism against justice because they have such a thing against SJWs or social justice warriors, quote unquote social justice warriors. They actually don't want to consider that sort of aspect, if that makes sense. It's just purely on just, taking it on the chin, moving forward, be the man, quote unquote, the man.
All right, but why is this idea not sort of consistent, and why is there this like lack of congruence between that and the Islamic ideal of a man? Like, what is the Islamic masculine? Is there such a thing as the Islamic man? Can you speak in those kinds of terms, or is it a modern phenomenon, the idea of masculinity and femininity and the contingency of masculinity, to femininity and descriptions of that? Because again, this is like another theme that's tied to the traditional the culture wars, and I'd say it's recurring, and it's one of the things that draws a lot of men, in particular to Jordan Peterson. So why is it wrong though? Like, why do you think? Because I've spoken to a lot of them, and
I just want to say, like, this doesn't answer your question, but Jordan Peterson has gone out of his way, or whatever the case is, incidentally or whether it's proactively done, to include women in his crowds, and his daughter Michaela co-hosts with him, and he tries to really project like this, hey, I never said this is about men only, and just to note that, because a lot of people suppose that we're not aware, but I think that's actually underscores further that no, your material very much is for men, right? That you're just trying to show that, no, we're not just
it's like having the tokenistic POC on the white.
We're not really toxic. And he goes, and he also says that on that show with Russell Peters that most men on YouTube are. I gave the answer. Not that there's a question. Most of the audience on YouTube are men. So YouTube's consumer is usually men, right? It's like 70%, something really high, right? And so he tried to say that these people listen to him because he started on YouTube and he remained there for a long time, and so that's just coincidence. Like there's no correlate. It's just it's not him doing it. It's the platform doing it. Yeah. But I don't think...
You're calling BS on that, basically.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So I don't think, that holds, because, you'll find stuff on channels on YouTube, I'm sure, that only women listen to, right?
Well,
whatever it is.
How many of look at the views in his videos, how many of the more viewed videos of his and the ones that you'll link to are about him refuting feminism and silencing women in discussions about, the most famous one, the interview where he talks about like gender pronouns with that woman. And it's like calmly dismantles feminism and those kinds of
or the gender pay gap.
Yeah, the gender pay.
And
exactly.
Some of them are so excruciating bad. It's like 90%.
No, but that's what people consume, man.
Yeah.
And like I think Sahib Weber once said, "We know what flies like to gather around."
Oh,
he didn't say that about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, he still has his shirt on.
He said that. He said that about.
That's close to shirt off stuff.
Do you remember Abu Musab Wajdi Akari, like the milkshake channel?
Yeah,
and that's what he said it about.
I remembered on the way drive here. I can't believe I didn't mention this on here. Do you reckon the real shirt off was this, and not the disappointment that Tony Abbott gave us when he wanted to front Putin? Yeah. And then nothing happened. So who is more masculine? The Muslim man, clearly, right? Neither the socialist Soviet guy, the Russian guy, nor this capitalist right-wing Abbott.
That's it.
Yeah.
Muslim man.
Really? We know how to take it off.
That's true. But I'm going to say something.
Before this devolves too much, please help out. Yes.
No, all good. In terms of finding an ideal, I think we had this discussion in front of Dr. Yassin Morsi. Shout out to you, man. Hope you're doing well.
He's AOL.
He's
we're going to start describing him as Dr. Yassin Morsi in
Dr.
10
Yassin
minutes.
Morsi.
Like, yes.
Please come back. We've missed you.
No, listen. Yassin Morsi, listen.
No, but there's an interesting argument where, if it is an Islamic masculinity, then there may be some utility to finding it and defining it so that any deviation away from that could be policed. Does that make sense? Like any deviation away from that that's yielding damaging consequences could be policed in a way that's super productive. So hang on a second, Again, it's trying to find simplicity in an incredibly complex phenomenon. But that hopefully that sort of touches upon an aspect of your question.
That's your answer is like, well, maybe we should actually seek to define that in and of itself.
Or define it to an extent where deviations can clearly be identified.
Yeah. And I recently, so I'll bring it in. It'll might or might not help. Sheikh Abu Amina Elias, Justin Parrott. You can think of him as whatever you can think of. He's a bit of a controversial figure. But mashallah, he's done great service to the Ummah. And like, look, I'm back paddling now. But I don't.
We had him on as well. It was a really good episode.
Right. Yeah, his material on that rights theory, and it's just it's bothersome for me. There's also human rights in Islam. That whole discourse. Anyway, sorry, you got to drop this part for sure now, right?
No, it was really discussable online.
Okay. So he actually came up with a description, if not a definition, of masculinity in his recent piece article, which is quite well written. It's 24 pages, something like that. But I just found there's a bit on what is masculinity in Islam, and he gives descriptions, right? And I had some brothers who were very advanced to level in, sort of challenging it. Right, like saying muru'ah is not masculinity. Women can have muru'ah, which is one of the words used, and he translated the word muru'ah as manhood. Right.
Yeah? Interesting. So, are we defining masculinity as something that is only common, that can only be exhibited?
In this case, it was. Yeah.
Interesting, because that's an interesting way of going about it.
That's right. Well, this is the challenges, right? I think that what you're just saying right now is what is completely missed. that you can't have the masculine energy within the female subject, right? And all of these categories are modern anyway. Like that's my point. Yeah. Like as in when you think of people now, we're liberal subjects, right? Whether you like it or not. Like when you're talking about this stuff, the reason it's all entangled is, and we can't loosen out of it. We can't find where our tradition is because we don't live in the 17th century Istanbul, right? Anyway, so he was describing it, and if you look at a lot of the aspects, I think I think this Khabibian discourse will struggle with it. It'll struggle with it because aspects of it seem very simp, quote unquote.
Well, if that's the case, then that sort of goes back to my point. They're obviously a deviation away from that sort of definition, or anywhere close to that sort of definition, and we can sort of police that with the Islamic traditionalism they try to project and claim for themselves. So I think there's actually a lot of utility to actually trying to find this out, and that like potentially that may be the cure, Rafael.
But that extends to all of the subjects we sort of mentioned about economics as well. Like why?
Well, precisely right. I mean, to talk about economics, right? We still haven't figured out a way to grapple with the modern financial system. Like, for example, like, are we going to tax people? Are we going to borrow money? I mean, we still haven't really grappled with all the implications. Like, we're so behind. Yeah. So that being said, like, there's a massive intellectual project just waiting to be accomplished. But there's a lot of utility. But
that's the thing. Instead of doing that, all the intellectual energy of everyone who's worth anything is going towards these kinds of discussions, like the culture wars discussions.
There you go.
And trying to, oh yeah, you're a traditionalist, I'm a traditionalist too. We both care about family. That's where the intellectual energy is going, not what is family in Islam, what is masculinity in Islam. Do you want to know why?
Because this is the boring stuff that requires a lot of hard work, and it's not podcast material, and it won't get the likes. This is the stuff you do.
So we're all cancelled, brother. We're all like just like capitalists,
pretty much.
Trying to get the likes.
There you go.
He just got cancelled. Did you hear that?
I'm sorry, Tanzim.
No, podcast match.
No, but that's pretty much it.
But look at this. This is Sheikh Justin Parrott's descriptions, if you like. So this is quoting him. He says, Ashafi's sensitivity to the concerns of women were likely influenced by his understanding of traditional Islamic masculinity. As he said, manhood, al-muru'ah, is based upon 4 pillars: good character, generosity, humility, and devotion. And then I had Sheikh Bassem Zawadi came and responded saying, well, that applies to women as well, by the way. Right? And I think that's sufficient to say, that it's not nearly as clear cut as what the Khabibian ideals will have you. That a man is not like a woman, I know that's the ayah as well, but we're not saying that. And the rest of the descriptions follow. He gave 2 more. I want to read them out. But if you can see his piece. His article is called "Custodianship of the Right Hand: Concubinage, Rape, and Sexual Slavery in the Islamic Context." So it's a discussion around consent and that whole topic. And in that, he just happened to have this bit on masculinity.
I think it is an important discussion to have, and there is a lot of nuance. You can't slap anything on it comfortably. Nothing sits comfortably. I think even that the ideas of total equality in society, in Islamic society, the way that it's conceptualized in the West is going to be difficult as well, given ideas of qawama, mahram.
I agree, but there's always a center.
Yeah.
So there's always a center. Yeah, like that very famous SBS Insider. It's
yes,
fantastic. Exactly
Morsi's.
right. But it's
the Morsian moment.
Exactly right. But it's such a powerful comment because there is a center. Because how do you know what is and isn't Islamic, so to speak?
Otherwise you get these things like
everything's game.
1.6 billion ways to be Muslim. Otherwise,
exactly right. So potentially right, we should probably direct all our energy into finding an appropriate center, and acceptable deviations from that, because we're not totalitarian as people want to make us out to be, but traditionalism is not authoritarian that the way Jordan Peterson made it out to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. There was a supposition that it lends itself to authoritarianism. Yeah, and in fact, our tradition would say, there's rahma, there's rukhsa, there's leeway, there's considering you talk to people on their terms. Exactly. All sorts like. We're not the Catholic Church, right? And I think that's where he was coming from,
Exactly right.
And that's the discussion that was had in the end between him and Mohammed Hijab,
Again, yeah.
You guys did it worse than us, but we can be friends. And we can have peace treaties, inshallah.
Yeah. I'm just really proud of the fact that we've managed to come back to Jordan Peterson after a few tangents.
No, I don't think that were tangents at all,
the entire time. There you go. See,
I honestly don't think that were tangents at all, man. I think that if we're going to describe this cataclysmic event It has to be in the context.
the great event.
Yeah,
This is
it has to be in the context that we've described just now.
the game has changed. Like I thought my life was going to change after seeing Spider-Man: No Way Home tomorrow. It changed like yesterday and this afternoon. So it's been my life is like I'm going to walk out of this podcast just completely flawed. Like I didn't witness the conquest of Constantinople, but
Sorry?
I didn't witness the fall of Constantinople, but I've witnessed this podcast, so I feel pretty good.
1453.
It's equivalent, yeah. It's like it's just nearly as good.
But yeah, I feel like
Nah, so one of the first questions, actually not one of the first, like midway asked in terms of how Jordan Peterson asked Mohammed Hijab about sacred texts and fallible people, interpret them, and so hence how do you essentially ensure that you don't get like an authoritarian approach, or you're actually following what the sacred texts teach you, because we're flawed individuals and human beings and stuff like that. And Mohammed Hijab definitely butchered that, because like Jordan Peterson asked him like 3 times, what you're not actually answering my question, which he actually wasn't. And so how would you guys answer that question?
Well, the terms of that question are unfair, right? So like if you look at authoritarianism in the last century or two, was it all from religious texts that was coming from? Like people would say, in fact, quite the opposite of some things, right? Like, Nazis and Nietzsche or Darwinism, like that's the complete opposite. So for Jordan Peterson to create that dichotomy or that apparent opposites doesn't hold, right? So
liberalism will descend into chaos, but then you have...
And that's not true either. Like when you say liberalism descends into chaos, I think that's a caricature of liberalism to mean pronouns and things like that. Like the things, the things that are eroding the nuclear family, right?
Ooh.
Right? I think that's what's going on.
Interesting.
Like when he says what's liberalism? Capital L liberalism is rights, like freedoms and rights of people, and the state mediating that. It's not pronouns and gender and LGBT and things like this. This is what it's made out to be. That's actually part of the culture, like the low resolution cultural war discourse. That you just label someone as a liberal, you label someone as a woke tard, which is
really interesting. I don't know. I was thought about critical race theory in that sense, how it's like critiquing that, and it's about unpacking the fact that no, liberalism isn't what it's being told to us. It really is, not giving that kind of equal rights to minorities, etc. So it highlights that, and that field kind of goes out of its way to explain that and articulate that and use a language, right? So I think even those kind of nuances are very like missed within these kind of conversations. As you said, it kind of boils down to only pronouns, LGBTQ, everyone's just parade pronouns.
The reason that the
shared
CRT is
bathrooms
good,
or whatever.
Yeah, CRT is good because it's good, right? Watch me get mobbed. It's a sustained critique of liberalism, right? Funnily, most of these people think CRT is actually liberal, right? It's a sustained, 40, 50-year tradition of critique of law. An origin, right? It's right.
Came out of the legal schools.
That's right. It's legal. It's at the court, like, which is very obvious for anyone to see. Like, I don't think anyone can deny how the American courts are prejudiced towards blacks, right? And the
in our own context,
right?
Muslims as well, right?
Like this, but even if
obviously Muslims, we have black Muslims and stuff. But
if you look at it, let's just say it only applies to America and it's like no good in Australia or something like that. I don't know. Let's just do that for a second. Even if you do that, you see how worthwhile it is, because it's a critique of liberalism. Like, laws are brought in to make things equal from the civil rights movement, and it didn't yield the results. Yeah. There's still racism. Like, and it was rampant, and it's still rampant. Like, you can put.
Why is it happening? You need language to articulate that, right? All these experiences the
CRT is the thing that the non-podcast material, right? Like it's
exactly right. No, that's what I was getting to. Like, this stuff, one, is complex. Second of all, I don't think people nowadays on the internet go out of their way to actively challenge their own internal biases, right? One, is actually too painful, and you'll be very disoriented, and that's actually the result you're looking for. You want to be disoriented for a while, because that's when you know that you've been hit with something that's quite worthwhile and it's challenging you.
Describing like a post-HT guy, I feel, but
yeah, I was never involved in that particular movement. Post many things, yeah, or for example,
post-Salafi.
For example, I think Rafael and I bonded over this. We had a very fight the machine sort of communism, Marxism phase.
Running your
I hear
shahada?
that. No, good. Good job. But that I personally think you're right, because that's difficult, doesn't get the views. And also, I think there's a reason why your DH types, your provocative types, garner way more views and a larger crowd when an individual like Abdul Hakim Murad, for example.
It's a kind of like vending machine, vending machine therapy. Because DH will come out and destroy something like the world is rid of this filth, right?
Take our shirts off.
Yeah, and
Khabibian
instead of sitting there and like look at these definitions, they seem like the masculine has feminine in it. What's going on, right? From the Islamic tradition, or the feminine has masculine.
But it's all linked
to it,
together to what I mentioned before as well about the orientation. Sorry, about the orientation of Mohammed Hijab and the proto Salafi and the Salafi movement that continues to this day to continue. It's tied into what Abdul Hakim Murad calls those kinds of arguments. That kind of dawah is tied into the imagination of Islam as what Abdul Hakim Murad terms the cosmic slot machine. And that version of Islam.
And it's very modern, isn't it? That's the other thing he says.
But it's all tied together.
Yeah. He says that, even Islamism there's good critiques of him as well on that, but that it's actually a response to a modern response, Islamic response to the modern nation state. It's a protest. It's not a sustained, it's not a in-depth, shifting of the tradition, development of the tradition.
What were you going to say before? I think you had
No, I was going to say, Sadi, you're an accountant, right? Now I'm saying about like 1 + 1 = 2. When you're on a momentum and you're doing maths homework, right? Like it feels really good. You just, getting, through these answers and stuff, like the progress principle in business, in business school. So if you guys want some of my boys in the cave, in the corporate world, you have something called the progress principle, where if you're doing tasks really well and doing them consecutively, you build a lot of momentum and you're feeling motivated to do really good work. Now, if you do higher level maths or complicated maths, your brain really, really hurts, and naturally you avoid it. So I'm actually sympathetic, because these discussions are mind-boggling at times and they're quite painful. So I understand it, but I think you have an obligation to. This is my opinion. You really have an obligation to actively seek out situations which challenge particular worldviews, especially if you're being told it's intellectually lazy. And even if it's false, I think you have an obligation to, explore that and go out of your way and make sure, am I being intellectually lazy, or can I actually, but that being said, I really doubt the maturity of many of these individuals to do so. And which sort of ties back into the fact that we now live in like the social media age where, it's all about, the quick sound bites, feeling good, the buzzwords. I don't know, man. But that's my point. That's what I want to make. Like, it's difficult. It's not easy.
You brought maths. I'm going to derail this podcast right now, but so I asked this question and I got scene zoned. The question I asked on
about mathematics. Yeah.
And you just brought up maths now, so I was
sorry.
like,
yeah.
So
No,
is
fair
mathematics in of itself capital T truth, or is mathematics like almost an attempt to formulate kind of an attempt of understanding the capital T truth that exists, or is it something that we use to understand our kind of world better? Because because one, you're like strict Hanafi, right?
Well, no, I mean, just saying that topic's like going to take 3 hours. So.
It's going to take ages, and have to leave. So my mum wants me.
Oh, you have to leave?
Yeah, all good.
Well, let's just, I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's go for a few minutes. Yeah.
Tanzim's question was answered by another question of mine, which completely derailed any attempt to answer his. But it's a very good question. I have no idea.
Does number exist outside of the cosmos?
Well, I've read a book saying that mathematics is the language of the universe. Like, most natural phenomena can be explained.
Does number predate?
So Sabur Ahmed, in his talk today, he said that this is tangentially relevant. He said that certain things you have to believe in, right? Otherwise, you can't have a discussion at all, right? So, like, you have to believe numbers are real,
like
the real world exists. No, you have to take you just have to believe in that, like, because they have no proof. They can't.
Yeah, isn't that the definition of what axioms are? Like, you just have to. They're just true by definition.
Axiomatically true. Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but you just don't have nothing.
But I think in our STEM world, right? It's appealing when it's nice and defined. When there's nice 90 degrees and you can count and add them up. But interestingly, I only learned this like not many years ago. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say Allah is one, it doesn't mean he's one as in like this. There's one phone,
Yeah.
right? It means he's unique, right, or unitary, right? So because when I remember when I was a kid, I used to think Allah is one. Isn't He alone? Like it doesn't feel alone because He's one.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's just being a kid, but He's not one in that sense at all. So you're not counting one God, right? Because then numbers hold, right? Like God is dependent on the idea of 1, 2, 3, right? So there's a prior to even God, which is problematic, right? So and Allah's never saying that. He's saying He's al-wahid. He's uniquely one, right? So it's like saying eternity is in itself one thing, right? But eternity is not a number as such. Like as in it's not write it down number, right? You can only be abstractly presented, and there's different versions of it or whatever. But maths, just to comment on that, and I'm an accountant, but I don't know maths, bro. Believe me, this is a misnomer. Accountants are not mathematicians.
That's true.
Far from, right? I did like nothing maths, but there's usually confusion between maths and mathematics and arithmetics.
No, just more so like when you just like maths problems, like if you're really good at it and you like, hit as many of them as possible. It's why the soundboards are so appealing, right? Every single time you watch them, you get some sort of high, and you never really want to go outside of the echo chamber you find yourself in. It's comfort. It's very basic psychology, man. It's like, it's all about comfort zones. And you have a particular strand and a group of, quote unquote, traditionalists who are feeding into that, sensibilities and sensitivities of insecure men or insecure individuals, because I've seen many among men like that sort of toxic behaviors. I'm not quite sure about the female sisters, but that's sort of the problem, in my opinion.
The female sisters,
what,
as opposed to those male sisters.
Yeah, well,
okay, this is where
I'm respectful.
Can we turn up to Jordan Peterson in here?
Yeah, well, well, here's the thing. Like we already got we're potentially gonna have an onslaught of comments because of that numbers thing. I may as well just continue the momentum and be as woke as possible now. Get it all out. Just putting it out there. My Pomo nature is as wide as my accent, so let's put it that way. No, just joking. But that's the sort of thing that I was referring to. But I agree. I don't even know if we've answered Tanzim's question. It's pretty loaded.
So this reminds me,
I don't think we can.
In Yasser's class, so we were doing, we went into a lesson about structuralist and post-structuralist thought. I think it sort of connects to what we were like discussing just now. The discussion theories about, for example, is like what we like. For example, truth is what like something that is already existing, and there's truth in the sense that we can't attain that capital T truth, but there's like, I don't know, a window or a sort of attempt to understand that capital T truth. And so when the conversation about post-structuralist thought is like, for example, will we truly understand, Allah's nature, who Allah is? We won't, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to, by nature, you have to be, almost encompassing something in order to truly understand its nature, right? So I guess my long-winded point is like, these kind of conversations when it comes to like even those words being thrown around, there's that kind of reductionist take like, oh, astaghfirullah, like what are you doing? Like it's not part of the tradition. Why are you having this conversation? But then once you unpack it and actually go into it, I think what really struck me in that class as well was that kind of conversation about jihad. Do you remember like, okay, yeah, there's the term, like, when you talk to a tradition, we have the term jihad, it's in the tradition, it means this, right? And then the kind of idea or the kind of discussion that needs to be had is like, what does the word jihad actually mean in context in our current time? That's like a totally different thing, right? And that's not like being registered by traditionalists. You get what I'm saying? Because that's like a whole different field language to really unpack and articulate our context and the issues and situations that are going about, Islamophobia, etc.
It's much harder, thing
it's a complete different thing to do, and it's not like something that's already like embedded within our tradition. It's actually something you have to formulate and do.
And that's
right?
what
And that's like
summarizes,
that's where it kind of feeds to my point about you guys like discussing about before about tradition, understanding things a bit deeper, questioning things, etc. So I think that's where like there's like a big missing like gap, right?
That's what
like,
summarizes what was lacking in the podcast that we were talking about. That dimension that you just mentioned. The dimension you mentioned.
Yeah. Because the traditional can't be like, yeah, bro, jihad means this. Is what are you talking about? The Islamic tradition.
It's very much like
I'm like,
this is the
okay,
answer,
but
the pamphlet answers to things. Whereas
it's a multiple choice test, right? There's only one, answer that you hit on, you're on the head. That's it. There's again, we try and find certainty in a very complex world, and we do a very poor job of actually attaining that particular certainty because we ignore so much of a nuance, which in and of itself lends a lot of insight, which is useful to discussion at hand. So I don't know, man. That's probably the podcast. Also, again, potentially it's like an hour and a half, right? So very little time. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure if before when the camera was off, they discussed, look, we got to keep this short. My schedule's really busy.
No, Peterson said towards the end, I got to go.
I'm getting burnt out.
tired,
Yeah, that's the thing, which tells me that there was no time frame. Like this could have went on for a while, potentially.
Yeah, no, I think he's sick. He could actually tell like he looks. He looks.
His
Yeah.
normal setup was different to now. It sounded like he got like went to the corner of his bedroom and sort of set up the camera there, and then kind of
He
had
looks
that
pretty-
walk.
he
Because
looks
if you
pretty
look at
trashed.
the good camera angle.
Well, he struggled with like mental health and even physically he struggled with everything,
God!
right?
If
Like
you
he's had
listen to his
he's
his
had
book. So
Yeah,
it's all in his book. It's
12 Rules
a
Life?
bit of it's actually a bit of an autobiography.
Oh wow.
Well, let me just mention that he went to Russia to get treatment for certain things, and he was in hospital for like months and months on end.
It is just like a mental.
This is the recent one. No,
that's
sort
physical?
Of,
Okay.
It was mental, but it was physical, but obviously took a toll on his mental health. And then he wrote the second book, which is the 12 additional rules, right? Because the 12 one was version. It's like the Dana's Direct ads. This is the Vacuum 3000.
Oh, here's
as
the
opposed to
thing.
1000, which is really crap.
After this podcast, we're going to get another book.
Yeah. Click on the link below, subscribe, like, right?
Well, man, look, man's got to do what man's got to do to eat, man.
I wanted to say this and I completely forgot, right? Jordan Peterson is now taken as what he's taken as, right? Like right wing and tradition, this, that. Is actually like an ironic way. It feels like what happened with our mate Nietzsche. Nietzsche comes from a very Christian family, and his dad was a priest. And he became what he became, an ardent atheist and so forth, and a great philosopher. So it was like, and he had a very terrible relationship with women, right? So he never got any, and he lived with his mum and his sister most of his life, his short life. He didn't live very long. He was in a lot of pain. So, but I'm trying to say,
It's best not to laugh.
relax.
I've never got any.
No, I'm not.
We're talking like a modern Westerner.
I'm not trying to be slack, because if you read, his vitriol against women, right? He says that, go thou to women.
So he was the first incel.
Yeah, he was a serious incel.
Damn.
The quotes.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, if you read, he says that it's better, women are at best cows. He's got quotes, like lots of comments like that. And the other guy, Schopenhauer, was even worse. He threw a woman down the stairs and nearly killed her and paid compensation to her for 20 years. Anyway, Jordan Peterson was a communist, right? And his entire house was covered in Soviet art. And he's got so much of it.
He has mentioned that before.
Yeah, he had so much of it to this day. They don't know where to put the stuff. Like this, all the walls were covered with this stuff. So I feel a lot of what he's doing is just a 180-degree turnaround, right? That shit. I was communist when I was young. Sorry, is that the first curse word in your podcast?
No, it's not.
Okay. And so now he's gone all out and saying things like, "Oh, the Western system is the best system. Don't try to change the system. If you try to change things, it goes really bad anyway, right? Just do a little bit, right?" It's as if he's talking about himself. He's just projecting his own.
Now the obsession with the Gulag Archipelago makes complete sense.
Yeah, and if you read his book, the 12 Rules, he mentioned how Mao did this and Lenin did that and so on. There's never a mention of what capitalism did in 20th century, or what like America did in Japan,
Well, here's
or
the thing: we never.
Korea.
That's such a valid point. Like,
But then on the podcast, he says like we need to like understand our histories. Yeah. So he does mention that
But it's so de-emphasized, right? Like if
because
you
he tried to highlight the point that
if
it's not as colonization wasn't the real reason, or
yeah, because he's almost like, look, that's
Muslim
okay.
world.
That's too hard to solve. Just fix your room. That's why it happens, right? It's like it's too hard to grapple with. So you have to go to like things that look like solutions. And as even rule
How much
one,
does that resonate with the average Muslim nowadays in the West?
whole lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, whole lot, because we feel powerless. You got the Uyghurs, and you got where the most you can do is, oh my God, let's not do that, Sadi. Take off your shirt. But I could not help myself. Right? It's on the same genre.
that's true.
All right. Are we going to pray Maghrib, or this is...
do you think maybe I think you asked one question. Do you remember the point where Jordan Peterson said Islam is part of the West because we're all people? The book?
Oh man, that was so butchered. And Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad came on so strong, right?
We're just gonna send him. We're just gonna send him traveling home in the mail, just straight.
No, you can't. No, because he said it as if like
He's
it was
read
so,
the book?
No, he didn't. He was saying something really preposterous. He was saying as if it always has been. When Peterson was saying, hey, same prophets and so on, like really we're the same. Like, no, dude, we never have been, right? And Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad's point is that Europe was Europe because it was defined by the resistance, by the contest Islam had with it. Very different point, right?
It was a clash of civilizations.
Yeah, that's right.
But Sheikh Hakim does make the point that even if that was the case, monotheism was common to Europe, and so we're not entirely foreign to that worldview and paradigm.
He's making the point for now. He's saying that Ishmael belongs in Europe. This is almost quoting him, right?
It is,
so he's saying that the Christians and the Jews, or those who still care about tradition and heritage and so forth, monarchy,
have a home in Europe,
right? They ought to look at Islam because they feel so. That's his whole theory.
Disoriented.
That look, you're not out of ammo, so to speak. Sorry about that analogy or metaphor. That Islam it's right at home already,
right?
You know? As opposed to Peterson was saying, you guys have always belonged. Like, come on, man.
No, we haven't. No,
and you said that when you've downplayed colonialism just a sentence before, the breath before. That's what he did, right?
Historically, Peterson has a habit of doing this, like just gross oversimplifications of historical phenomena.
That was a good point.
Maybe psychologists do that. Just
Apparently, he's not a registered psychologist.
Really?
I found out yesterday from a sister who's a psychologist that he did the degree. And he worked in labs, so like experiments. But apparently he hasn't done much or registered one-on-one.
Oh, like that traditional, what we understand to be traditional
so
psychologist.
Psychologist, just be careful. Like it's like more of an academic psychologist.
I know what you mean.
And he is not a reference in the field.
Like he's not reputable?
No.
Apparently,
that's I don't know if he was.
He's not. I thought he was known for like he's famous for like remodeling a psychometric test or something.
Yes. And
I
even
did that, by the way.
That is,
I did that.
Yeah,
Was it
the
good?
5-factor model.
Yeah.
No, again, it wasn't.
It wasn't that
markets
powerful.
It's a thing he sells, right?
Interesting.
Conscientiousness and all these other aspects, whatever you have, and you can sort of fix
I bought
yourself.
it, and I did it.
I bought it too.
And it's not like a test, right? Like obviously you can't fail it, but I failed it.
Really?
I failed a psychometric test because it was like agreeableness. I was low. I was like, I'm not a good guy. I'm not a friendly guy. And then it's like conscientiousness, like low. And then it's like what was the one about like work ethic? All of them, I was like 0%, 1%, 1%. I'm like, bro, how did I fail
That
this
sounds
exam?
pretty traditional. That's like pre-modern. You're not a capitalist.
Yeah, no, that's it.
I can't work.
No, I can't work.
can't.
I'm not that nice to be around. I disagree with people. I'm neurotic. It's like, damn, like everything that was bad, like I got it in like 0 and 1%.
And that is why Rafael was an art student. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I love my art students out there. Massive fan of it.
No, you're exactly right, man. That's it. That's the only thing I can tolerate.
Rafael said it. I said nothing on the record. I'm a big fan of the humanities. Rafael, it's on you.
I'm the most pretended fan of the humanities. Because I'm an accountant, as you outed me.
No, exactly. Here's the thing. A lot of these Bachelor of Arts grads look at us and say, you're lucky. I look at them and say, I wish I had your brain and your capacity to read the text you read. Like,
I don't, man.
I feel like I've missed out on just reading finance theory.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, I've missed out a lot.
I was going to
of
mention
course.
that actually. I was like, imagine a business or finance student talking to arts students, like talking down to art students, man.
You can't.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I think
the only thing you can say, all right, I've got a job. But other than that...
well, here's the thing, right?
I told my dad that I wanted to do business, right? Because I was thinking at that time, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna make money. And so I told my dad, Dad, I think I'm gonna do commerce at UCD. And you know what my dad said? He's like, you can't live here. If you're gonna do that, you can't live here.
What did he say?
He's like, you can't live here. And then he piped up. He's like, he put on his voice. All of a sudden, he developed an accent. He's like, no, son of a mine.
Tanzim, things Desi dads don't say.
Yeah. Don't study commerce. No son of mine is gonna dedicate his life to making money. And I was literally he threatened disowning me for studying commerce.
Haven't you realized that a lot of the JP crowd are those very hustler business corporate types? Your hyper capitalist, energetic young men who sort of project. Real example,
like
the crypto frenzy. it attracts a certain type of, when I say crypto, an image comes into your head of the podcasts.
Dang,
of
throwing
the
shade
LinkedIn
at me and
marketer.
Raf.
Yeah, pretty much. But you know exactly what I'm saying. Like, there's a commonality there.
Culture. Yeah, it's of
Yeah,
anti-intellectualism,
exactly right. And
meme culture,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's it.
and
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's
and
all-
like
That's his
and like
crowd.
absurd capitalism. Like it's absurd, you know.
No, and I think Josh.
But it's something because like free market. And
Josh,
Yeah.
Josh isn't here now, but you know what he said to me about crypto? I'll quote him on this because it was actually quite interesting. His critique was that his critique was basically that why you give you sell your labor for your whole day. That's your whole life. You just sell your labor, right? To someone, the government maybe, or like a corporation, whatever, and you're working, 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, more if you're in corporate. Especially in the early
14, 16.
and then you go home, and what do you do in your time off? You try to make more money, like through things like crypto and ventures investments and things like
That's
that.
we make dua for Josh because he's inflicted by wokeism and he needs to read JP and
basically replaced
Josh, I'm going to go on the record to say I think that that excuse he made not to turn up today was a relative truth.
you know what?
He would have been the best to have on here, but he's just bailing. He doesn't want to be in the firing line.
I want this to be on the record. Tanzim messaged me today at about 3
You
p.m.
were blowing. Were you substitute?
I think I was a late substitute.
Oh,
90th minute.
I found
90th
out.
minute.
And to be honest,
West
Tanzim,
Ham.
put on the
Cushion
record.
sub.
Put on the record. This wasn't the first time you've got me to do this last minute, is it?
Is it? I don't know.
No,
what
it's
you're
not.
talking
There's been a few messages. I've got a few chains. I'm going to tag the Boys in the Cave Instagram and just expose you now.
Yeah.
Um,
This is what corporations do to you.
Yeah.
They don't care. You're just a number.
Well,
You're on the way.
You're just an input.
well,
you know?
well, let's see.
Yeah,
So, see,
Yeah.
Tanzim,
capitalists by nature.
Tanzim has kindly offered to be, my corporate mentor, so to
Yeah.
speak. He's just putting me through the firing line, making sure
Yeah.
that
I don't think Josh and Mahmoud is a like for like replacement though. Like I feel like Mahmoud, if I didn't show up, Mahmoud would replace me. I think you need to find someone like.
Is it because we look white?
I mean, not really, but like.
To be
I
honest,
think
I'd
the vibes.
For me, it's
Rafael's
like-
my idol. I'd really actually.
For me, it's like air and water because neither of them are substitutes for each other. You have to have both. Yeah.
Sadi. See,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is the pre-Baghdadi love homoerotic poetry that's just trying to make its way out.
No, but like this is the Khabibian way to do things. You end the podcast with a bit of bromance.
That's true. Hey, that is one thing we learned from this podcast,
Yes.
right? It ended with bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
See you later, bro.
You can come to my mosque anytime. You name them.
Any mosque.
Hey man, you're
Hey, guys.
welcome.
Any-
You're welcome.
And
We'll be doing.
and to all our listeners,
Matkali Mosque. Even there.
and to all our listeners, Rafael is tearing up just like Jordan Peterson, and you can see it on his face. Oh, he isn't. Oh, no, now he is. Now he is.
Can you imagine
We've
the amount
managed.
of? Can you imagine the amount of Peterson Zindabad that's gonna go on? Huh?
We made it.
Postmodernism Murdabad. Can you imagine the march? My God.
Oh, what a way to end.
There you
What a way to
go.
end.
We are. This is this
On
was
that
my,
bombshell.
How's my debut? It was good.
Mashallah, you did a great job. We'll let the audience, we'll let the
So,
YouTube
yeah,
comment
I'm
section.
scared, man. I'm actually scared.
Bruh,
Like,
this it was great fun being cancelled with you.
yeah, we're
It's
gone,
great fun
aren't
being
we?
cancelled.
This is the last time I'm
Nah,
appearing.
to be honest, I think by now we've turned off everyone who would disagree with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Bro, I honestly think
only lefty
we're-
pomers are stuck.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
from
With us,
from
yeah.
the
So
from,
our crowd.
out of the more popular mainstream sort of Muslim oriented content distributors or creators when it comes to Islamic content, we probably have the most different perspective out of the typical ones you hear, I would say. Can you think of anyone that would sort of echo similar?
I don't know of any other Marxist podcast. No.
Exactly.
Yeah, some
Marxism
pseudo Islam.
yeah. That's it. No. Look, I'm not completely previous to the responses that will be made by other podcasts and the reviews represented. I know there's some guys, but like, I forget, I don't know his full name. Hussein from Canada. I had a discussion with him. He has a podcast. He's like pretty woke in a good way, mashallah, woke. And he's pretty cool. Diffuse Congruence pretty cool too. I have a lot of respect for them. Good spectrum of they're just like not problematic. But you're right in so much as there are notable podcasts. I would say, yeah, I wouldn't say that we're the only one. I know that there are other podcasts out there that sort of espouse similar views. But
Number
there,
one lefty Muslim podcast in the world.
that's it. The podcast, there are notable Muslim podcasts though that like absolutely butcher these topics, and it's no criticism of them, I think they come in they live in different contexts, and they're speaking about different things in different spaces for different times and places.
Like the Khabibian Dawah.
Yeah,
For them.
Well, you want to just realize
We need to trademark this.
we've actually made up a few names, right? In our group chat, we've called them trad bros. Sadi has called them, the Khabibian Dawah bros. We've got.
I think Khabibian Dawah is
it's like the specific, like the shirt off.
It's the no. I mean, it's
Shirts
the
off for the
genre of the
boys.
apologist.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
what you mean,
yeah.
The
But
militant sort of.
genre, bro. That's mashallah.
They're like the military.
You know, go on Netflix.
They're the paramilitary wing of
It's
the
like
trad bros.
it's like Bollywood.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Sci-fi.
English, sci-fi,
And,
romance,
there's Batman music
Sci-
as well. It's a fantastic
and
place
then
to
and
be.
then Khabibian Dawah option.
Nah, they're definitely paramilitary.
like when I realized that Khabibian is a thing, then you can whenever you can mock a thing without it insulting the religion itself. It's fantastic. Then you know that there's some artificialness to it, right? See, we can talk about Khabibian Dawah. I don't think I've insulted the religion anyway, right? Because
in fact, you've pointed out their like inconsistency
Yes.
and the fact that they're not following like
Hopefully.
the excuses they make for a person in their underpants or taking their shirt off.
like Muhammad Ali's. I mean, she's not an activist. That's about it. But Muhammad Ali's daughter is a boxer, Layla Ali, and she has been for a long time. Where did she feature in our dawah?
Yeah.
It's haram, right? Obviously, right? As opposed to
Ooh, good point.
That's it.
Or actually, no. I was going to mention Tanzim fixes the record, but what about Actually, no, I'm going to say it about it.
Too late now.
So no, I was going to say, there are some fantastic, athletes, or even like actors, for example, or pop singers, like really, like openly identify as Muslim. But yeah,
Oh,
exactly what I'm thinking of.
Who do you think?
actually, this is
The Albanians.
Actually, this is very much part of the Khabibian Dawah.
It is, right, isn't it?
I think it extends to history. So my wife loves it, but I hate it because I listen to the boring Ottoman history podcast, academic thing. But Derlis Ertuğrul.
That's true.
I said it. I said it. People go after those actors when they're acting un-Islamically, as if like, hey, Ertuğrul, what are you doing?
No, exactly. I thought you said on Twitter. It's
On Instagram, bro.
on Instagram.
And they're like, what do you want me to do? Like, I live my life.
It's actually interesting, right?
Just want to pat my dog.
Yeah.
No. Malikis.
They're actually activists. I remember one of the Ertuğrul actors is actually pretty politically active.
He's a Kemalist, right? Like,
I think so. No, it might be Ertuğrul's wife. The actor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
What's the name?
she actually puts up like some decent Twitter, like, talking like, genuine like commentary on geopolitics. I was like, wow, you managed to take on the role, beyond.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't this wonderful? Like you see how where imagination and tradition meet. Like I mean, imagination by literally fiction, right? Like Ertuğrul, the whole thing is mostly made up, right? And obviously each detail of all of the episodes are even more, right? Right? But that's seen as like tradition. That's seen as masculinity. That's seen as all of those things, right? Yet it doesn't matter the fact that it's not true, right? Like. Is there anything more postmodernist than that?
Hey.
Can I add to that? Or good point.
Smart.
And just add to what you're
That's
saying.
what happens when you leave HT.
That's it. You just the world opens up.
Everything becomes relative.
Well,
and,
right now, everyone's Sadi is floating.
Well, here's the thing. I currently work for Faraz, and Harun and Faraz are in my story about it, and it's funny.
You gotta try to convince Harun to
leave her. I've been trying to. Ask around. I've been trying to.
He's getting a shout out on our podcast.
To add to your point, you were saying, because in MYA they're doing lectures. MYA, like the organization, they're doing. Dr. Sami's running classes.
Muslim Youth Association. Yeah.
Give him a shout out. Inshallah.
Not just people may not know the
So
abbreviation.
they're based in
Basically the
Sydney.
Master MSA.
They Master MSA, pretty much. But the MMAA. Yeah. Anyways, MMSA. But so they're doing classes, right? In terms of history. Dr. Sami is going through like history and stuff, and what was a really good point that he brought up is that he got a picture of pretty much mosques around the world. Like you have, he was talking about like culture and how Islam sort of infuses into the culture of people around the world. Right, he's making that point. Similarly to like I guess what Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad articulates as well. I guess the power of Islam, and he brought like an image. He showed on the PowerPoint a picture of like a mosque in like another part of the world, and then in Japan where it's like it looked like those Japanese tea garden thing. It was like that vibe, but it was like a mosque. And he got like another picture for like Sweden or something, and then the culture and Islamic kind of Islamic mosque came to their sort of culture. And his point is basically like we live in the West, and then he put pictures. So he's teaching at Gallipoli Mosque, like the Gallipoli rooms. He's basically roasting LMA, Gallipoli Mosque, and he gets a picture of Gallipoli Mosque. It's we're bringing back like what? Yeah. Like our heritage in the past and bringing it here, like why? And he's like at Gallipoli Mosque as he's roasting Gallipoli Mosque. And then he brings a picture of like Lakemba as well. It's like, where we'd bring back something in the past or from our previous home countries, but we're not really bring something authentic in accordance to the current culture in the Western world. And that's how Islamically, like I guess in the past, our architecture was like that. It would infuse, and that's how Islam was sort of spread as well, because it acclimatized.
That's more as a very central
exactly
point.
Right.
So he made that point.
That
and
is
English Islam and Australian Islam.
that's the most important thing, man.
And it's not that there's
I don't mean it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
quote unquote sellout
pejorative
stuff.
way.
Yeah.
I know.
You mean I when
Sizzling sausages, wearing the hat, like.
Or think about it, like a mosque that draws on a mosque whose art patterns draw on like indigenous, Aboriginal, or Torres Strait Islander culture of the locality the mosque is in.
What about the idea of Islam and Abdul Hakim al-Rattot is responsible for explaining this, and there's something I watched of his where he talks about the Javanese puppet shows and the importance of Javanese puppet shows in the spread of Islam in Indonesia, and we know about the centrality of Qawwali to the spread of Islam in South Asia. Devotional music that was basically had its origins in the pre-Islamic subcontinental music that was then adapted. So the same applies now. You need to have an authentic expression. I've mentioned this in other podcasts.
Was it you once said, bro? You once said to me, and I was like, my God, and like because this applied to me like 140%. I just chose that 110 is too low. That we either need to wholly hold on to back home Islam and like just do that well if we can. And I don't think you were saying that we should do that, but it's just like if you're going to do it, I was
saying that's impossible.
Thoroughly.
That's what people try, but
it was
impossible.
like but if you were to do it, like don't or we need to create a identity here because in 2-3 generations you're going to be like there'll be no Islam. Because Islam point, is a organic social local phenomena everywhere it goes. It's not an importation of culture.
And I was furious. I made that point when I was furious with someone, a particular talib al-ilm here, who was insisting upon like, why do we have to engage at all or explore it or anything to do with this country, its politics and its civil society?
Because
like,
it's the only language you speak.
And maybe? I'm like, all right, big
place
man.
you've lived.
All right,
Big man.
all right, boss. You might be able to talk like this. You still speak the language your parents spoke when you came here. You still have an imagination of the way that Islam was practiced, the way their parents taught you. 3 generations time, what are they going to be doing?
That's true.
That's shared off talk.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Shared off talk.
Yeah. I actually sorry, that was not meant to be facetious, but
No,
I really meant that.
But 2 p.m. Macca's car park, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, and maybe let's bring this back. Like, potentially that is the safeguard to avoid an entire generation of doing what a large majority of this generation has done, and go to your Petersons and go and find meaning outside.
Well, that's what they're doing.
Because our community hasn't grappled with these issues very well. Others, quote unquote, have.
Yeah, I've got my because you got to include every single little thing, right? Peterson does this when he really likes a point. So this is my impersonation because I can't do the voice. He goes, right? So he really agrees to a point. You see, like when he's listening, he will make that sound.
Yeah, like it was like it was also him like, and it was there's a break in there of the Kermit.
Yeah. It's stressed, distressed. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
it's iambic.
That's right. And even then, like, that's a credit to MYA. I know I speak a lot about MYA as a joke, but I think if that's its mission,
is it a matrimonial thing?
No, Muslim Youth Association, where it's pretty much potentially it may not get there.
That was a joke.
Oh really? Oh, Okay, I'm sorry. I was too slow. See, I'm too clean, man. Like, these jokes are... I've
MSA.
moved beyond them, yeah. I've
Marriage.
moved beyond the MSA as being the marriage... matrimonial service association or something. I don't know, man. But my point is, like,
I don't know why that's hated on. How else are you meant to get
Bro,
married?
the first thing is like, how many chairs does he carry after packing up the fundraiser? Like,
yeah, or like,
oh, he's got 4 chairs, mashallah.
or the shout out
He's
to
a real man.
shout out to moderate memes for MSA teens. They really did like a fanfic of like a series of posts about how a brother named Yazid and a sister named Jannat managed to actually get married. It's a fantastic MSA journey, and it involved, I kid you not, 2 looks and a mother's smile. And it was set in stone, my friend. It was a fantastic story.
No, I don't condone this.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
I condone that. I don't condone the critique because I think, how are my kids meant to get married? Leave them be. This is really like not you pointing fingers at you.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, like we make fun of them, but like, you know, they come out all damaged. They're like in their 20s, like, I can't find anyone.
But you know,
Minder is no good.
But we were
What
so
is this?
pessimistic. But we were so
Is this
pessimistic
traditional
about the
Islam
podcast.
Yeah, it's what?
Is
Is
it
this
recording?
traditional Islam still?
Oh, is it traditional?
No, it's all good. It's a bit of comedy, right? You gotta give the fans everything. But we were so pessimistic about the entirety of the podcast, and we're saying, all the intellectual energy is not being channeled to, appropriate means. Well, potentially, organizations like MYA on the ground. Maybe it's giving me too much credit, but let's look for hope, right? It's not the hope that kills you; it's the hope that inspires you. And yeah, that's pretty much a good ending, hopefully.
Man, I think we should probably wrap up.
Wait, okay. Last question though. Overall, that podcast, Mohammed Hijab and Jordan Peterson, what do you make of it? Do you think? I know we very critical and articulate different interesting viewpoints. I think overall, if the intention was to just get through to some, random non-Muslim that thinks Islam is some war-like barbaric thing, it could possibly open the heart. And honestly, like when Mohammed Hijab recited the Quran, I got goose. I was actually like, feeling
400,000 people.
And if someone is like if it kind of going back to your terminology, Raf, penetrated my heart, right, in that situation. Inshallah,
this
I
is
hope.
so bad. Do you understand the damage this does to the reputation of our podcast?
Tanzim, man. Look, I swear, like,
I'm not even
Rafael-
joking. You don't understand how bad this is. Our very dignified, serious audience is coming in there. They think, you know what? I'm sick of the chest beating Khabibian Dawah podcasts. Like, I'm gonna go listen to those Aussie soy boys, and Sims
Aussie soy boys.
with their serious tones and their Marxism. And then at the same time, like, we're out here laughing about this word. Like, it is, bro. This is corrosive, man.
Oh, no, he's
This is
But
the
yeah,
end.
so I'm just saying it could,
This is,
penetrate the heart of another,
Yeah.
inshallah, another non-Muslim. And if it serves that function, then I want people to be guided to Islam essentially, right? From that perspective, that very specific perspective. So just wanted to. That's my last thoughts.
I rate the podcast 6 V cans out of 2 Pepsi Max cans.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. That's like 5 out of 7.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So
5 stars out of-
interpret that as you wish, because we live in a very complex world, and
Yes.
so it is what it is.
Do you know, tell me, the 5 out of 7 meme?
No.
Oh, okay.
Is it good?
Okay. Well, it's as good as what you just said.
Oh, there you go.
Basically, is that actually a real thing? You got to look it up.
Oh, good. And please apologize for my very awful Australian humor. Only the 4 in the room.
No,
will get
don't
it.
you?
apologize for the.
And I apologize. Sorry.
Sorry, what do you think overall podcast? Like just thoughts. We wrap up on these like last thoughts of overall on the podcast. Okay, he's very focused on his phone.
Sorry.
No, it's like overall thoughts on the podcast. It's like final thoughts. What do you make of it?
Of the show
Intro.
itself? Or,
Yeah,
what
sure.
we discussed?
Our show it was a train wreck, but
I'm sorry. See, they invite me and everything just derails.
I think it just adds like another layer for those who like people don't listen to I don't think the content of what's discussed matters, right? To the people that it appeals to, it's the symbolism of all of those things that the symbolisms that matter. So, Mohammed Hijab got Islam out there, or Jordan Peterson was willing to listen to Muslims, and look, there are kuffar that still care about tradition and family values and so forth. And I saw some brothers, even in the comment section, you can see like Elm Feed, which has like a million likes on
a lot of
Facebook.
prominent
organizations, that were very supportive of the discussion. So I think it's actually entrenching this stuff. It's entrenching. Is that the word? Yeah, like it's polarizing those who are pro this stuff and they don't look at the actual content and don't look at how some of the things Mohammed Hijab said, and even at a macro level or meta level, was problematic, but they just see those sort of impressions, So I think overall, so I already have, I mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, I don't have and this is nothing personal against the brother. Like I don't hold him in very high regard because how he acted towards Sheikh Dr. Jonathan Brown, towards Sheikh Yasir Qadhi, and I think he also had a crack at another sheikh, but I'm not going to remember that, which were very unfair and very out of place. And he also had a go at some atheists in a very crass, crude way, and then he apologized the next day. So he has his recent history over a decent amount of time where he has done, I think, not very good, regardless of not to take away from his general Dawah efforts. But yeah, I think him coming onto this, it's just, it's just polarizing. Like I'm probably on that other side of that polar. Yeah.
I know. If we get Mohammed Hijab on, I'll have you on, inshallah, and then you can argue with him. How does that sound?
I would. You'd probably want to get someone more. What's the word?
You're backing out. You're a masculine man. I thought, what happened to that?
No, I think yesterday. Well, I mean, I have no doubt that a large, subset of the Muslim community probably agree with you, man.
I've him on WhatsApp, Madflex, little.
You have him on WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sending a message. He was like, he's just too busy to
come. Have you seen the WhatsApp sticker?
Yeah. Can I send that to him?
See, the more Tanzim talks about potential guests, the more I feel like I was just a last minute addition.
Now we have Arya people. I know they listen to our podcast and stuff. So
he's
hit us up,
giving
inshallah.
you an opportunity to add to your CV.
That's
don't
true.
You get about
I'm not even joking, man.
No, but I only do it for the likes and views. That's the difference.
Enhancing your profile. So although it's unpaid labor, right? You were considered a really high caliber candidate, and on this occasion, you had a chance because you're on the waiting list.
I got to be on a podcast with Sadi, Rafael, and Tanzim. Like I've peaked, man. I don't think my life is going to get better than this.
What about you, last?
One thing I will say is that Jordan Peterson has an element of his fan base is Islamophobic. I don't. Mohammed Hijab, I have respect for. I don't mind him. I think he's good. I think he should become a Sufi. But that's it. That's my only contribution there. I could say a lot. In a little bit more flowers and more poetry than that. But I just think if I'm just going to speak bluntly, he needs to join a tariqah and read something about Arabic. But besides that, look, Jordan Peterson has a large Islamophobic fan base. As I mentioned, the fact that he went on and spoke to an Orthodox Muslim is going to make things very interesting for them. I want to say
what does interesting mean?
Oh man, I wish.
I
always do this, right? I always choose.
Interesting is a get out of jail card.
Exactly. Yes. I choose deliberately vague words. I choose deliberately vague words so that I dig like what happened. What you just asked me doesn't happen, and I don't have to describe it.
Well, Tanzim can just cut out the podcast.
But look, ultimately, what I mean by interesting is I'm interested to see the impact that a discourse between Jordan Peterson, who has a large Islamophobic fan base, has. That I rephrased it. I'm interested. So we'll see what that does. It might have a positive impact at the end of the day. But in the interim period, again, I said 45 minutes of it to me were very difficult to listen to, and the last 45 minutes were okay. They were interesting enough, and I think Jordan Peterson's questions, Mohammed Hijab did what he could and answered, as Mohammed Hijab answers.
and to be fair, right, probably we can end this as well. But even if the podcast episode wasn't as appealing as it should have been to many, the fact that it's bringing about these pretty awesome conversations. And we're not, we're one of many who are going to discuss this, and hopefully there are plenty of insights flowing around the marketplace of ideas. But I think it's pretty good in that sense. It's a catalyst for a discussion.
Absolutely. And rather than we could examine it that way, or as a phenomenon.
So that's the third time Rafael's done this tonight.
Yeah, a phenomenon within the broader context.
Yeah.
Of these discussions and cultural wars that we can point to as significant.
Another chapter.
Absolutely.
Another 10 blog posts.
Absolutely, guys. So thanks very much, boys, for coming down. We better
Thank
jump
you.
out
Yeah,
pro Maghrib
we'll
now.
jump out, inshallah.
Wow, good
Share it
stuff.
around and send this to Mohammed Hijab. Any friends of his who's listening to this right now, inshallah. And yeah.
Shout out
should
to
be
our
good.
Euro guys. You said they listen, bro. They're
Some of
legends.
them,
man.
yeah,
Sabur
so
Ahmed
inshallah.
is a legend, man. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a legend.
He's awesome.
And,
So is Zoxis.
But he needs to change his views on feminism.
And someone make a podcast episode happen between Zaki Murad and Jordan Peterson. Make it
Yeah,
happen.
inshallah,
please.
inshallah. All right,
That would be
cheers.
insane.
I actually really enjoyed this conversation, by the way. So it was a lot different. We're actually fun to listen to.
Do you want to know why it was fun? No, I'm joking.
All right, salams, peace out.